Shabbat Shalom to all of you, Mishpacha, all of the present in the room. Welcome into the room. This is Rabbi Simon Alta from Pensacola, Florida. Okay, so we're gonna look at the Parshas today. That is Parshas MIshpatim. And before we do, you want to just have a quick check. What is on my, let me give you a joke first. This is a good one. A rabbi, a Baptist pastor, and a Catholic priest all get together and buy new cars. The Baptist pastor decides that he wants to dedicate his car to God, so he drives the car into the river. The priest decides then to dedicate his car also. He dumps a bucket of water onto his. The rabbi then says, well, if those Christian schmucks are doing this, I guess I need to do something also. So he proceeds to sew off the tailpipe of the car. So that's the joke. Now, our Parshas today is Parshas MIshpatim, and I wanted to take a little look at it, but before I do, I wanted to ask the room if there's any questions from last week's lecture before we proceed forward, so that not missed anything, and then we can speak. Anybody? Did we miss anybody's questions from last week? Because I know I went over certain principles last week, but obviously there may be questions arising from that. And MIshpatim, the Parshas today, is all about the Torah laws, all about it. What wonderful laws we have, and what wonderful laws that God has given us to operate in. And it's kind of a reminder of where we are today as a result of, due to the disobedience of our forefathers. We are in the nations today waiting a restoration. But part of that dispersal that God put upon us, there is also the fact that we as a people are going to be a light to the nations, to the Gentiles. So that, couldn't happen. That would never happen if we stayed all in Israel at one place, because who would want to go out and take the Torah truth to the nations? Now, of course, what happened is, mishmash, not entirely Torah went to the nations. Nations got, I guess they got the breadcrumbs with New Testament. So New Testament is really breadcrumbs, with a little bit of a gravy on top. There's nothing else there, because the New Testament doesn't really have laws, doesn't really have practices, doesn't really teach you anything other than the fact that what Jesus of Nazareth did and what his disciples did thereafter and what happened and so on and so forth. So, when you really come down to hardcore laws, I wanted to speak about a few things before I get into the Parsha, and I wanted to set you straight as to what it is that modern Judaism and ancient Judaism believed, and why they believed in that, so that you get a gist of the picture of where we are and where we need to be as a family. Because we, as the children of Israel, Bnei Israel, are a family. When I went to the East, when I was in Pakistan, this was one of the questions that was asked to me, is what denomination do you belong to? And I was like, I belong to the denomination Bnei Israel, the children of Israel. I said, that's not a denomination, that's a people, by the way. I don't belong to any denomination. I said, I belong to the house of Israel, and that's where I come from. So I set them straight that biblically there is no denomination. There's only one people. And, there is a people in Israel that call themselves Israel only. And these are predominantly, maybe you could call them Christians maybe, but they're not Christians in the modern sense, because they believe in the New Testament, but they also believe in the Torah laws. Now, I don't know how strictly they hold to the Torah laws, but they do believe in the Torah laws. But they also believe in the New Testament. Now that's where the problem comes, because when you say believe in the New Testament, where do you put it? And I will talk about that too. But here's the issue. The issue is this, that ancient Judaism believed, that is first century Judaism, they believed that a Messiah figure will come and remove captivity from them. So the Messiah figure they were expecting wasn't a singing and old dancing Messiah that will give them eternal life. You see, that's where Christians, they muddled it all up. And the Catholics and everybody else that, took over from Jews after the destruction of our temple, really, they made new doctrines. They made new theologies, the Trinity, then you had the Messiah, the God, and all that. All that was made afterwards. Why? Because the ancient Jews, our forefathers from first century, they did not believe in a Messiah that saves anybody. That theology didn't exist, because they were already redeemed. If you want to use the word redeemed or saved, they were already saved under the covenant. We are covenant people. So I keep telling you, we are covenant people. We are not Jesus only, or Messiah only, or Jesus is God only, or whatever terminology you want to use. Because none of those terminologies will hold true when you go back to first century Judaism. They will not hold true. And then we have to come back further back to the Torah, and we'll talk about Torah as well. There is not a single statement in the Torah that says that I have to accept another person to die for me or for my sin, because the concept is foreign. It doesn't exist. The Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says we are covenant people. We are already rescued under a covenant. We don't need further rescue. Now, the only time we want further rescue, where the Gentiles have muddled it up and made it all things that are not, is when we want to rescue from an oppressor. Rescue from an oppressor is different from, rescue or redemption of your soul. These are two separate matters. Your soul's redemption is covered under the covenant, but the rescue of your oppression, is not covered. Well, I say it's covered, but it's something that you would want actively. In other words, when you want to be redeemed, you're not asking for eternal salvation. When Jews wanted to be redeemed in first century, they were not asking for eternal salvation. They were asking to be redeemed from the Romans. And that's where today's Christianity has no clue about that we do not need redemption under a man figure. The Torah prohibits from a human sacrifice. And the Torah says that you shall not take a human sacrifice and offer it to God. So whatever rosy glasses we use, the Messiah's sacrifice will become some kind of a human sacrifice, and it will not work for anybody's salvation. So now there is the concept in the Torah or in the Bible, there is a concept of vicarious sins, meaning, or vicarious salvation, meaning that somebody can do something on your behalf and you can get the benefit. It's called vicarious. There's a funny terminology the Christians use, but one of the terminologies that I hear about is vicarious salvation. So vicarious salvation is fine. There's actually nothing wrong with it. The concept is fine. You can say that the Messiah, lived a righteous life and he died. And whether you believe in his resurrection or not, that's irrelevant. Some of you believe in his resurrection, some of you don't. It's totally irrelevant. Whether you believe he's a Messiah or not, again, totally irrelevant. Whether you believe he's going to come back or not, totally irrelevant. But if you just believed that he died vicariously for your sins, which by the way, all of Christianity believes, then that is possible that his death can atone for Christianity's present sin. In other words, not forever, but present. Those past and present, and it stops there. But they still have to join the covenant. Without the covenant, their sin will never be atoned for. So, That's something that Christianity don't understand. So ancient Judaism, in the times of the Romans, when the Romans occupied Israel, they believed in a Messiah figure as a king only. A king who will come and set them free from oppression. They did not go any further than that. They did not say that, he's going to redeem my soul, because that didn't exist. Just as the same way as when we left Egypt, we wanted to be redeemed from oppression, not from soul salvation. So be very wary of these words, because they will help you. We are not redeemed through anybody's blood. Blood doctrines are entirely paganism and paganistic in their, etymology. All the nations use blood doctrines, whether it's, sacrificing swines or doing something else. Our sacrificial system did not have atonement by a bull or by a ram or by a goat. We did not get eternal atonement by that. Our eternal atonement was always through the covenant that Abraham was given, that was then subsequently given to Isaac, to Jacob, to, Moses, to Aaron and his sons. The only people, and let me be very clear, the only people that became your messiahs, when I say messiahs, other than the kings of Israel, the people who helped you when Israel was damn stuck, with problems, it was the priesthood. It was Aaron's sons. They were the ones who always came to the rescue. And they technically became your messianic figures. Because you can look throughout history, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and you can challenge me if I'm wrong. And I put the challenge, I lay it right down over here. It's because of us that Israel survived. Otherwise, Israel would be finished as a nation. Because I spoke to a pastor abroad, and he was saying, "Why are you so angry with me?" And I said, my anger with you has done no harm to you, and my anger has done no harm to nobody else. I said, if I was, angry, and you saw my real anger, I said, you wouldn't be standing there where you're standing. I said, it was because of my anger and my forefathers' anger that Israel survived as a nation. Otherwise, the Gentiles would eat them up. I said, it's because of our anger that they survived, because we are the rescuers of our people. And you don't know that. So I said, I'm only angry with what you're saying, because, he was telling me that somebody over there wanted a bribe, and I was angry with him. I said, I'm only angry with you because, you're telling me that so-and-so person's asking for a bribe, and I'm angry for the right reasons. And it's called righteous anger. I said, go study your Bible. Don't teach me the Bible. You got no right to teach me. I said, go study your Bible. It says righteous anger. Righteous anger is when you're angry for the right reasons. If I was angry unrighteously, then you would say to me that you're angry, and I would agree with you that yes, I'm angry and I really have no reason to be angry. But I said, I do have a reason to be angry. Somebody's asking for a bribe. You're telling me that he has to be paid, and I'm telling you no. He doesn't need to be paid the bribe. So I said, my anger is right. And then he comes back to me, and then he says to me, Rabbi Simon, I'm sorry. Yeah, I know you're right. And I said, I'm always right. You don't have to tell me that I'm right. I'm always right. But I said, the thing is this, that, you take on local customs, and I don't follow your local customs. I'm following the eternal law of the Creator, which you guys don't respect. And he said to me, no, he said, we respect Bnei Israel, we respect you people because we know you're the people of God and all that. And I said, fair enough. But I said, don't just say it. I said, I said, you think I'm stupid or I'm a fool? I'm not a fool. And I said, and don't think right. My word, I said, is going to be 10 times more heavier than your words. When I speak to God, it's going to mean something. And when you speak to God, it's meaningless. So I said to him that, I'm through these games, the little games that you people play over there with your fellowships, with your churches. I don't do those games. So, this is my point. My point is that we are covenant people. We are the house of Israel. We are the children of the God of Israel. We're the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that means something. That means a whole lot to all of us. And to all of us who are here, and to all of us who are going to be coming in the future into the covenant. Because there are many out there that are still not in the covenant. And many more will come. So I'm giving you a picture of, a lot of people say, how is Jesus God? You must now understand how Jesus is God. Jesus is not God per se because he's made of, the same, he's the same light that we see the Father in, because the Father never reveals himself. We cannot even stand his light. So if you understood from the teachings in the last 9 months or so that I've given over here, you would know how Jesus is God. How? The same way that you are God. You all have the I am in you, and so did he. So with that methodology, one can understand that yes, we have the divine within us. It's not that Jesus is God, you are God as well in that technical term, because you also have the divine with you. And every one of you has a divine within you. Now the question is, do you activate it? And that's how Jesus spoke. Jesus didn't speak as a separate entity and said, I am God per se. He was speaking about the same divinity that he carried. And then people didn't understand it. People thought he's calling himself God. But the thing was that understanding the I am, he said before Abraham was I am, you got to understand that in what way is the I am. That's exactly the same way as you are I am, because you have the I am within you. And so he had the I am within him. But nevertheless, like I said, there is no teaching or there is no verses in the Torah. Everything is that we believe in today. Everything that we hold to is Torah. If the Torah says it, then we do it. If the Torah don't say it, we don't do it. I don't care how many times the New Testament says it, it's irrelevant, because New Testament cannot be at the level of Torah. It can never be at that level. It's at a much lower level, and it is not even treated. It's not even treated as scripture, but we loosely treat it as scripture. We do treat it loosely, but not strongly. Do you follow the oral Torah as a question? Yes, some extent. We follow some of it. We don't follow all of it, because not all of it is lining up with the Torah. We follow the parts that line up. So rabbinic law, rabbinic law is a huge front of rabbinic law that we do not follow because it doesn't line up. And if it lined up, then yes, we will accept it. That's my answer to the oral Torah. So, having said that, oral Torah is good. There's nothing wrong with oral Torah. I per se don't have a problem with oral Torah. Only problem I have with oral Torah, if any, is that it can become burdensome to do minutiae of oral Torah, which I will not teach, and I will not follow myself either. As a Kohen, I do not teach it and I do not follow it. So that's why I'm not going to put people under hardship to follow laws that are going to make their lives, a hell to live with. I wouldn't do that. I don't care, how nice it looks on the outside and how nice a wrapper oral Torah has. But oral Torah always has those issues. So coming back to the return of the 10 tribes. So let me tell you that what some of the first century rabbis believed. One of the very famous rabbis in the first century, Rabbi Kefa. You remember, he came from a Gentile background. He was a very famous rabbi. He had 24,000 students, and all his students died. Did you also know that all his students died by a plague? Now, we can talk about why that happened, but mainly, he believed that none of the 10 tribes will return, by the way, and I think that might be news to some of you today. He believed that none of the 10 tribes will return, that God can establish a kingdom without the 10 tribes. And also, modern rabbis, some of the modern rabbis also believe that none of the 10 tribes need to return and God can establish a kingdom without them. Now, I personally do not believe it. I personally do not teach it, because the Torah has a precept, and I'm not using the prophets as a step. I'm not using Jeremiah, I'm not using Ezekiel as a prophet to concrete what I'm teaching you, is that the 10 tribes will return. And so therefore there's no doubt about the prophecies. But the prophecies that God has given cannot be fulfilled without the 10 tribes returning. So Rabbi Kefa is saying that most raise the oral Torah over the law of Moses. That's problematic. Torah is king, and that I will say is true. This is where this is where we wrestle with the oral Torah, and this is where I reject a lot of the laws of the oral Torah, because they do trump the laws. I'm not talking about President Trump though. They do trump the laws of the Torah. For instance, you are told that you got to keep your Shabbat today, sunset to sunset. By the way, that's an oral Torah precept. We never had a sunset to sunset Shabbat. And so therefore, our Shabbat always began at sunrise and ended in the evening, and our day ran to the next morning. But our Shabbat ended at night. We were free to do any work in the evening, and we were free to do any work on Friday. So we had no such precept of Friday, sunset, Shabbat. Now, if you follow oral Torah, you got to stand there with your little candles, 2 candles. You got to light them up. You got to recite your, Shabbat prayer. All of that is oral Torah, by the way. It is not Torah. So, if you like to do it, if it makes you look nice, if it brightens the neighbors, or the neighbors like to come and see you do it, fair enough, you do that. But if you rather follow strict Torah laws, then you don't need to do any of that. You need to give thanks to God for the Shabbat, that is today, sunrise, and you need to not work today all day, and then you're free to work in the evening. That's the only Shabbat you have. So you can, and again, I have laid my challenge down. I always say to people that you can prove me wrong, because you can go back to our books, you can go back to our Mishnah, you can go back to our Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, and you will not find a sunset day that the priesthood followed. The priesthood has historically never ever followed a sunset day. They only followed a sunrise day. Now, the Talmud speaks about sunset day, and because that was a Babylonian day, the Talmud talks about it, and the Mishnah talks about it. But that sunset came from Babylonian places. So, and the Greeks enforced it upon the people of Israel, and a lot of the sects in Israel at the time accepted it. Some of them didn't accept it, and some of the sects also accepted pagan laws, like Greek laws, because the Greeks were saying you're not allowed to study the Torah and things of that nature. So my point being that the Torah, you see, I heard a modern rabbi speak, and the modern rabbi said this. He said, this idea that Christianity has, that the Messiah will come and put the third temple in place, and then there'll be eternity, he said it's all hogwash. He said it's all false. He says, as far as I'm concerned, we don't need no Messiah, because in Deuteronomy 17, God has told us that you can make a Messiah. In other words, you can take a king from your people and set him over yourself, and that will be your Messiah. Basically, Messiah means king or anointed. And they said, we can take anybody as a king over us, we can establish a third temple, and if we do wrong, God will again throw us out. In other words, he said that cycle will continue. He said that cycle will not finish. There's no such thing as an eternity where, we all go back and hunky-dory, and now we have a, Messiah figure, and we never come out. He says, no. He said, if we do wrong again, which we are capable of, because we have free will, then we'll be thrown out again. We could be thrown out again a second time, a third time, a fourth time. He said this cycle could go over and over and over, and the world just continues. That basically is a modern rabbinic thought, by the way. And I do, in some form, I do appreciate that thought, and I do agree that Israel can set a Messiah. The Torah does say that you can set a Messiah upon yourself, a king, and you continue. And yes, they could do that. But then again, you see, we still have to deal with prophecies where the whole house of Israel needs to be back. That's the only problem. The only problem is you can do that part, but then the whole house of Israel is not back. Then what do we do with that part? Then that becomes in conflict. That's the only thing. Otherwise, the theory is fine. There's nothing wrong with the theory. But in principle, it won't work. And it hasn't worked for 2,000 years. And, I would also like, I usually say to Christians, I said, well, Jesus hasn't turned up for 2,000 years. Well, where is he? So, sometimes when I get annoyed with the Christians, I tell them that the only thing that stays is Torah, not Jesus. So Torah is the one that only stays, and Torah is the one that goes forward. So, point being that, this is why this belief of Jews that we can establish a Messiah any time, and they did. They tried to establish many Messiahs. If you look back, I don't know if there's about 15 or 16 or 17 Messiah figures, because, the Messiahs of Judaism. There is a book by a title of something like it might not be exact title, but it's like Messiahs of Israel. And all of these Jews, right, they set up different Messiahs over the last 2,000 years, and none of them worked. So my point being, it doesn't work because the rest of the prophecies don't line up. That's the problem. You see, because some Jewish rabbis believe that the prophecies don't matter what the prophets say. They say the prophecies of the prophets don't matter. What matters is the Torah, and the Torah doesn't say these prophecies. So therefore, we can set a king over ourselves, and we can, set government, and we can go. But again, you see, the Torah does speak about the return of the house of Israel. And the Torah does say that they will come back. But then, you see, sometimes they like to take shortcuts, and it doesn't work. So, point being, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, now you got a good picture. Jesus was a right ruling figure. He died. And whether you believe in the resurrection or not, I'm only telling you from what the New Testament says. I didn't see him rise from the dead, but I did hear him, by the way. I have heard his voice more than once. So, to me, right, he is alive. And, yes, Eddie, the modern Judaism does not reject they don't reject them, but they basically have established another system of Kabbalah. And through Kabbalah, through the 16th century, the Kabbalah system was to replace the prophets. In other words, you can create your own prophecies, you can have your own spirituality. That's basically Kabbalah. That's basically what modern Judaism did. They didn't replace the Kohanim, they just put them to one side and said, you know what, until the temple, we can be rabbis, and we can do Kabbalah, and we can create our own miracles. Basically similar to the Christian camp. The Christians, they like to create miracles through Jesus' name, and Kabbalah likes to create miracles through rabbis' names. It's different rabbis, Rabbi Ari, the lion, and other rabbis that became famous for Kabbalah. That's basically what modern Judaism is, a concocted mumbo-jumbo of Kabbalah and mysticism and other things put together. That's modern Judaism. Modern Judaism is not Torah, by the way. It is totally Talmudic Judaism. And Talmudic Judaism, again, is not Torah Judaism. So that's the difference. Torah Judaism is a lot different. And Torah Judaism is what I explained to you earlier, is where we are today. So, coming back to our Parsha, in the Parsha from Exodus chapters 21, which says, now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. If you buy an Abrahu, Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years. In the 7th he shall go out free and pay nothing. Now, people might say this is ancient slavery, but it is not ancient slavery in the sense that it does say a servant, a slave, but it technically means that a servitude in the sense of, I could come to you, you have some money, you're a wealthy person, and you say that I need a higher labor. I need somebody to farm my land, or I need somebody to manage my books, or whatever, it could be different things. Modern way, it could be somebody doing an accounting for you, or somebody, running your computer systems. And you say, I need somebody to run my computer systems, and I'll pay him X amount of salary, and he will work for me for a 5-year contract, and after that we'll renew his contract. This is basically where somebody would line themselves up with you and says, okay, I will do that for you. I'll sign up a contract, and we'll renew it if I'm good, then we'll renew the contract. That basically is Torah's slavery. Torah's slavery, or servitude, is what we call indentured servitude. It is not the slavery that American black people faced, who came from outside, A lot of them are Israelites. They faced this slavery where they were shackled, they were not allowed to go anywhere, they were stuck on farms, and you know the whole story. I don't need to explain it. You all know it. And they were, it was a very hard servitude. It was extreme form of, I don't even call it, slavery. It is beyond that. It was terrible. It was terrible what happened to the people that came from abroad in ships. Black people who came into this country, they were treated terribly, and it was just such a bad thing to even speak about. It was injustice, totally. And having said that, that's that kind of slavery or servitude. It is not something that the Torah espouses. So we can understand that. And there was a lot of people that fought tooth and nail to remove this slavery. And you can, there's many movies made. Harriet movie that recently came out, I think is a great example of people who fought against slavery and Caucasian people who helped to free slaves. So, thank God that we don't have that kind of slavery today. But having said that, there is the entire slavery is not removed from America, because in American law, I think it's the 13th Amendment. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong about that. I'm not sure if it's a 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment might be right. 13th Amendment says that slavery can be used to punish an offender who breaks the law. In other words, today in our prison system here, majority of the people are kept there out of that same law that says you can make a person a slave and work for you for free or for a very small pay if they break the law. And American prisons are chock-a-block full with black people. So slavery does exist in the prison system, and many people, and I don't want to just say Caucasians, could be other people as well. It could even be black people. Many Caucasian people and other people benefit out of the slave system that is in the prisons. Entrepreneurs, people who operate prisons, people who own them, etc., etc. You get the gist. So that slavery is enshrined in the law, so it's not totally gone. It's not totally gone. It's only gone in public life. But if you commit a crime, and you know better than me that the black person here gets a lot far worse, stroke of the law than another person. A white person, I'm not saying that the white people are treated better in the sense, but they may get leniency much more than black people, generally. So, but now I'm not saying that, out of hatred for Americans or anything. I think Americans are generally good people, but incarceration, if a black person robbed a shop, a store, and if a white person robbed a shop or store, then if both of them went to the judge will imprison one maybe 30 years, another one he might imprison only for 5 years. So you see, there is a leniency there. But having said that, a lot to be desired. It's nothing close to Torah, by the way. A lot to be desired. But generally, I generally believe that American people are good people, but their system is still, holds to a little bit of that ancient, slavery laws in the prison systems. So it says that if he comes by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. So in other words, this is talking about the ancient code. In the ancient code of slavery, it was only ever allowed in two ways: when a person owed money, or if a person owed, like you owed a debt, and they would then say, can I work for you for 6 years? And that would be one way. And the other way was when you yourself go to somebody and say, hey, can I, work for you? I need a job. And then they could say, okay, come and work for me. Or the third way, there was a third way, where somebody committed a crime, and then they handed them over to this person and said, until his debt is paid, he will be your slave for 6 years. So that was a third way as well, by the way. So that's that part. So the MIshpatim, the laws in the book of Exodus speaks about that. Then it also speaks about that, let me see, Deuteronomy 21 also speaks about having another wife. And it says, and if he has betrothed her to his son, he shall deal with her according to the custom of daughters. If he takes another wife, he shall not diminish her food or clothing and her marriage rights. And if he does not do this for her, then shall she go out free without paying money. So basically, a lot of people have a problem with that verse. And you know that Americans, not just Americans, other people, Europeans generally have a problem with plural marriage. Plural marriage is enshrined in the Torah. We are permitted to have plural marriage. You can have 50 wives and you can have 5,000 wives. Torah doesn't say how many. But what the Torah does say very clearly, that you got to provide their food. Now, if you can't provide their food, you should not marry those wives. Period. So, I've written a book, as you know, I wrote it many years ago, called, it was basically on plural marriage. It's out there still. And you can, pick it up and read it. And it contains all sorts of different laws about marriage and marriage rights. So, basically, if you have a wife already, and you wanted an additional wife, then you got to be able to afford her. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to marry for the heck of it because I'm allowed to. That's what a lot of people did in America. A lot of people in America, Hispanic people, black people, who came into, Torah laws, like proto-Torah laws, they started to do this. They started to get a second wife and a third wife, but they were refusing to service their first wife. They were not taking care of the first wife, then they didn't take care of the second, then forget about even the third. So my point is, they took the laws and manipulated them to their benefit and not necessarily to what the law states. So they were not willing to take care of the first wife. And I remember about 5 years ago, in fact 6-7 years ago, I was getting calls in England 7 years ago from American women who were married to men who had more than one wife. And they were asking me, Rabbi, I'm married to such and such person. He wants to take on another wife. Is he allowed to do that? Can he do that? Because he's not paying, he's not supporting me. So these things I dealt with back about 7 years ago. Because I've been in America now 5 years. So it was about 7 years ago when I first wrote that book. And I had a lot of people send me and call me and ask me questions. And I explained that marriage is allowed only if, number one, he's provided the food and clothing for the woman. And number two, he's got to have a reason for it, And the reason doesn't have to be, oh, I don't like her. The reason could be, I want a child and the other woman is not having children. Or the reason could be, I need home help. I need help in the home. My wife can't cope, or maybe we have a disabled child, or, it could be 100 reasons. So, or maybe there's no reason. So anyhow, the main thing that the Torah commanded was, he must be able to support that second wife. And so therefore, today we encourage our folks, we encourage them to take one wife and support her and love her and live with her and get on with it. Because a lot of people today are having a hard time living with one wife, supporting her, opposed to supporting more than one. So our thrust is not to tell people that you have to go and do this. We tell people, at the very least, if you're able, get one wife and do the honorable thing, because God says you should not be alone. So get a husband or get a wife and get on with your life, to the best of your ability. I think that's good enough. And everything else other than that is commentary. It's debatable in order whether you should or shouldn't. The Torah doesn't give you do not, basically. So the rest is up to the rabbi and up to you, and you talk to your local rabbi, and the rabbi will give you the guidance on that, is how you proceed with that matter. So having said that, it then goes on and it talks about that here it says, it talks about a law, and it says, he who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. And if he did not lie in wait, but Elohim has given him into his hand, then I will appoint for you a place where he may flee. Now, there is something very interesting about this particular passage. I left it, my translation of the Bible, right? In order to understand my translation, you would need me, or you need another, rabbi with understanding to explain to you what my translation means. Why? Because my translation has hidden secrets that you won't know. You won't even understand until you read it. Like here over here, I put no footnote. I left it without a footnoteless. Why? Because I probably ran short of room. I put Elohim. Elohim doesn't mean here God, by the way. It could mean a judge. And if he did not lie in wait, but Elohim has given him into his hand, it could both mean judge or God or an angel. All three possibilities exist in the Torah, by the way. So I left it open. I didn't put a footnote there because I thought, well, how many times am I going to footnote the Bible, right? I've got so many footnotes in there. I had about 3,600 footnotes. I was like running out of room. So I was like, let's leave it as it is. And I can explain that. So basically it means if a man has died from, maybe possibly it could be not a murder, but manslaughter. It could be many things. But again, this is the reason why I left the word Elohim. Elohim here can mean judge, God, or an angel. And then it says, it then goes on to verse 14 and says, if a man acts with premeditation against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, you shall take him from my altar that he may die. In other words, if a man kills somebody and went and grabbed the altar in the tabernacle or the temple, and he was allowed to be, he was allowed not to be killed. But if he deliberately did something, you are allowed to take him and drag him from the altar to before the judges and, give him capital punishment or whatever was due to him. And it says, and if a man strikes his father or his mother, shall surely be put to death. Definitely we are not permitted to disrespect our parents, hate them, or mistreat them. Because when our parents become old, there is a tendency, unfortunately, in the Western culture, it doesn't happen in the East. In the Western culture, there is a tendency to strike your parents or swear at them. We don't do that, by the way, from the East. My goodness, God forbid, I would even speak badly to my father, let alone, strike him. That's something that I've heard these things happening in the East, people fighting, but I've never heard, a son or a daughter curse their father or mother, because it's unheard of to do these things. And I've heard it so many times in the Western world that people curse their parents. By the way, the Torah doesn't permit it. It is anathema, it is hatred, and it is something we must be careful not to do. Even if you don't like your parents or they've done bad to you, do not curse them, do not swear at them. In fact, I would encourage you to pray for them, for their well-being. And because, in our culture in the East, we have to look after our parents. The elder or the next son or the next, whichever is the next, will have to look after the parents in their elderly age. And because, we highly regard our parents, so we don't, throw them out on the street or put them in nursing homes. We don't do that back in the East. So it says, if men contend with each other, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die, but is confined to his bed, it says, and if he rises again and walks about outside with his staff, then he who struck him shall be acquitted. He shall only pay for the loss of his time. In other words, if you incurred injury on somebody, which might be called what do they call it in the GBH? Grievous bodily harm. I think that's the term known in England. If you did somebody grievous bodily harm, you'd have to compensate him. And that basically happens in British law. I'm pretty sure the same happens over in American law. And that law, by the way, comes from the Torah. It's called grievous bodily harm. And it says, if a man beats his male or female servant with a rod, so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. So, like in the ancient world, and even in the modern world, you don't have it so much here, except the rich. But again, in the East, in Pakistan, we still have maid servants come into the house. People employ women over there to come and clean the house, or clean the dishes, or help out in the washing. So, you're not allowed to hit them, you're not allowed to mistreat them, you're not allowed to do anything to them. Now, in this Torah fashion, ancient Torah culture, a maid servant could have been your concubine as well. So let me just point that out so that, it's not something that's just hidden. That was also a possibility. So going forward, it says that if men fight and hurt a woman with child, so that she gives birth prematurely, yet no lasting harm follows, she shall surely be punished. He shall surely be punished according to as a woman's husband imposes on him. In other words, this was one of the words that was very hard to translate for me, because I just put down prematurely. Basically, it could mean, I could change that translation to goes out. That's what the Hebrew says. Hebrew says if the child goes out. And, then I thought to myself, you wouldn't know what child going out means. Because a child going out could mean he was born prematurely, or it could mean he was born dead. It could be, what do they call it? Stone birth or something? They call it something, there's a term for it. When a child is born dead. And so I wanted to just put out prematurely was the best, stillbirth, sorry, yeah, thank you. I thought stillbirth. So I wanted to put this out as prematurely because that met the best translation for me, because it meant a child could survive or a child could later die. Because, it doesn't have to be dead. It could still be born. Maybe the child had some problems. And then again, the Torah speaks about compensation. Torah says, the child is not well, and if the harm came as a result of a blow, then the man will be punished, and a fine will be imposed on him by the judges. If any lasting harm follows, then you shall give life for life. In other words, life for life doesn't mean that you will die. It means that the man would have to pay a large sum of compensation, whatever the judges, decreed, judges of the time decreed, that shall be paid. In other words, this applies to today as well. Today, I, as a Kohen, I'm a judge. Rabbi Kefa is appointed as a judge by myself. So, if in our midst a crime like this happened, and somebody was to, hurt somebody else's wife, punched her in the stomach or something, and, her child was, weak or injured in some way, you could be imposed a fine for compensation that you'd have to support that child for life. By the way, that's Torah law. So, hopefully, luckily, we don't have that issue, but beware that this is a Torah law. And it says that eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand. Doesn't mean you take somebody's eye out or tooth out. It means that you would, the compensation will be just. Judges will decide just compensation based on the crime. Yeah, and then it goes on, if a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he shall let him go free for the sake of his eye. This was obviously in the ancient times when slavery happened in Israel, and these people were slaves for 7 years, and the man, the boss did something wrong to them, and, it was basically a form of compensation. And then he could not tell them to work, let's say they said we'll work for 6 years. And after year 1, the man, struck the woman or the man and happened to injure them, and they were Gentiles that were allied to Israel, then the man would have to let them go. The Israelite would have to let them go and say, I'm sorry, he may have to give them compensation as well. Again, the judges could decree a compensation, and then he would say that, the rest of their 6 years they'd have to go, but remember, their 6 years have to be paid. They can't just go without pay. So they'd have to go with the 6 years pay. In other words, they may only work 1 year, and maybe the man struck the woman and she lost, sight in her eye. Then you'd have to give her 6 years pay and say, I'm sorry, here's 6 years money. Go, treat yourself and, go your way. That would happen, by the way. This is not something that happens in the modern times. In the modern times, heaven forbid, if you're working for somebody and an injury happens, then obviously the company has to send you to hospital, get you treated and all of that. It's on the similar levels. And it then speaks about the knocking of the tooth of somebody. It then speaks about an ox goes a man, so that ox will be put to death. Again, the stoning over here, by the way, wasn't the traditional stoning where you stand an ox like a showpiece and you start, throwing stones at the ox. It wasn't like that. The way the ox was stoned, the ox was buried into the ground. More than half of it was buried into the ground. And then you would just simply stone the ox in the ancient times to the body and the face, so that the ox would die quickly. And that's what the ancients did. But having said that, I've never read in the Talmud such an act that happened with an ox. I haven't read it, and if it's in some other book, I'm not aware of it, but this thing never happened, by the way, in Israel. And then it talks about whether it has so after the ox, the next law that comes in will be, I think we go on to chapter 22. It talks about the stealing of an ox or a sheep, and slaughters it or sells it, and he shall restore the 5 oxen for an ox. So it talks about you steal 1, you restore 5, and 4 sheep for a sheep. You steal 1 sheep, you restore 4 sheep back. In other words, this was a compensation, Torah law, that if a thief steals a man's car, then he shall restore the value of 5 cars back to him. When a man's car is ripped, broken into, of course the man's going to feel angry and violated because his car is his personal space. So Yahweh understood that and the emotions behind it. So the penalty was severe. And the penalty was that you'd take 1 and you'd pay 4 additional back. And then it says, if a thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. So if a man was stealing from your house and you killed him, then there is no penalty on you. By the way, this law stands in American statutes. America allows this. If somebody's breaking into your home and you shot that man dead, you are not going to go to prison. By the way, if the same thing happened in England, and it did happen in England, a farmer was fighting with a man, and ensuing in the fight, he shot him, and he died. The thief died, or maybe he was heavily injured. And the man was, they imprisoned the man, the owner. English law does not permit you to beat up the thief so badly that he dies. English law says, if a thief comes, sit him down, offer him tea, and ask him if whatever he wants he can take, and then phone the police afterwards. I'm telling you. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lion Princess. Isn't that the case? In England, right? You got to sit him down, give him a cup of tea, and say, hey, would you like a cup of tea, sir? And if he drinks the tea, then what would you like today? And then, after that you phone the police and say, I got a thief in my house. But just kidding, I mean, not quite to that effect. But you treat him basically nicely, but you don't shoot him. Here, I shoot him first, like in the cowboy movies. Yeah, in Texas, we shoot him first, we ask questions later. What's your name? But he's already dead. Okay, so that's my point, is that American law is enshrined in the Torah. But British law, even though it should be enshrined in the Torah, but the British law, it permits too many, niceties to the person. Yeah, offer his scope, some teens did. But British law don't do that. So what happens is that people, unfortunately in England, and as you know, you read stories about it all the time, is that old people, elderly, get robbed all the time. People go to their homes, rob them, but then, police can't find these people, or if they find them, they give them light prison sentences, and, the elderly don't have protection. It's really sad though, but this is one thing, this is one reason I wouldn't want to live in England. This is one reason I wouldn't want to live in England. I'd rather live in a country where I can defend myself. Okay, I may not shoot somebody down, but at least I can throw my shoes at him, or something, and not be done for it. But, here, in America, I can do that. I can pick up a bat and beat the heck out of somebody, or I can throw my shoes at him, but I'm not allowed to do that in England. In England, if a thief comes, only thing I'm allowed to do is call the police. And I'm not allowed to challenge him, not allowed to tackle him. But again, to be honest with you, if that happened to me in England, I would kick pardon my French, I would kick the shit out of him. Honestly, I would. Because I would protect my home and I'll protect myself, and I'll deal with the prison sentence later. That's just me. Because, I'm a martial artist. I'm not going to allow a person to steal from me and, give him tea for it. No, I'm not going to do that. But having said that, I would not, want to harm somebody. I'm not going to do it for the fun of it, just because I can. I wouldn't do it for the fun of it. I would still respect the person. I would deal with him nicely in the sense that I would just simply, I would contain him. I wouldn't really beat him too bad. I would contain him so that I could then call the police and get them to take him away. But I would not look to kill him, that's for sure. And again, I wouldn't do that in America either. I wouldn't look to kill somebody because, I don't consider myself here, law unto myself. If somebody was doing that, I would do the same thing. I would restrain the person, and I would call the police to take them away nicely. That's what I would do. They would get a few fists and they would get a few kicks, and that's about as much they will get, but they will not get a bullet from me. I don't believe in shooting people down for theft. I think that might be too harsh for somebody. But that's just me. Another person might see fit to shoot him first and then maybe ask questions later. And that's just, American law. But actually it does come from the Torah law. But just because the Torah tells us to do it, it doesn't mean that we have to do that. It means that we could still, we'll still act merciful to people who are in that way inclined. Because we don't know why they're stealing. We don't know why they're being a thief. Could be that they are in hardship. Could be that they haven't got food to eat. Could be many reasons. That's why the Torah does say, the Torah also on top says to be just to people. So that's another thing. So again, I'm not going to go through all of these laws. There's numerous laws here, many laws, but you get the gist. Things that you don't understand, you come to me and I'll explain it to you. There's a lot of good things over here in this book, this good book of the Torah. Beautiful things over here. And I don't want to go through every one of those things, but again, there's a lot of hidden truths over here. There's a lot of stuff over here that, will help you in your daily life, daily living. But having said that, I'll stop over here and I'm going to give you something. I was talking about vicarious offering, vicarious salvation. And I want to say this in favor for the Christians. Just as the Christians say that, Jesus died for their sins vicariously, and the Jews criticized the Christians, like the Jewish rabbis. You might have heard of Tovia Singer or Rabbi, Allback, these different rabbis, that criticize Christians for vicarious salvation. I would say the same thing back in Christians' favor, that the Jews are equally guilty of vicarious salvation because they vicariously take the forefathers that stood at Mount Sinai. And they said, we accept God's covenant. Well, how do the modern Jews today take it? Vicariously. Because they say, we were not there, but they were there, so we take it from them. Exactly the same way that Christians take from Jesus, I'd say kudos to them. So, the Jews cannot have it two ways. They cannot say, oh, well, we can have it vicariously from our forefathers, but the Christians can't. I think Christians equally can have it vicariously with Jesus. And if that's what they want to believe and they feel good about that, there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. So I am in favor of Christians vicariously accepting Jesus, Yeshua of Nazareth. But I also say that please try to do the same thing as Yeshua, Jesus did. In other words, obey the Torah laws. Do that too. Don't just take the vicarious offering, the righteous death, resurrection, but also take his other life as well. Look at his other life and do the rest too. So try to be as close to him as possible. Now, the other thing I was going to say, which is interesting, is that I wanted to point out something to do with the perfect law. The perfect law, we were speaking about it last week, and I wanted to point out only one story from the Torah. Props. I spoke to some people last week. And if you remember, I said, take your statement, take your bank account, and make it look bigger than what it is. That's, by the way, a prop. In other words, you take a screenshot of your bank statement, you alter it to what you want to look at, a six-figure sum. And that's doable, by the way. And that's also will come into your life if you believe in it. And if you follow through with what I taught you, that's called a prop. So I said, make a prop. That's a very advanced side of the perfect law, the law of manifestation. It's very advanced side of it. But you can do that. You can put it on your screen, on your telephone, and you can look at it every night, and you can, look at it 5-6 times. And if you continue to do that, that can be real in your life. You're altering the facts. You're allowed to alter the facts. And let me give you a story that happened in the Bible that presents that same situation that I'm telling you. Jacob was told by his mother to impersonate Esau. And Jacob impersonated Esau. First he didn't want to. Then his mother said, you must. And he said, okay, put this, hairy thing on from the goat's hair and pretend to be your brother. And he pretended to be his brother. And he got the blessing from the father that was due for the brother. By the way, that's a prop. See, the mother understood it, and she gave that prop to her son, and she got him to take the blessing. Now, let's not talk about whether it's right, wrong, not, forget all of that. What the Torah teaches us is you're allowed to put a prop, and you're allowed to receive blessings. Do you understand now? This is why I told you. Don't just keep looking at your $10 statement in the balance. Start making a prop and start making that $1 million statement, and then start seeing it and start working on it daily and put an affirmation. I am a millionaire. Put an affirmation down. I am a millionaire. Keep repeating it. Keep seeing your $1 million statement, and then you shall be a millionaire. And I told you last week you can even be a billionaire. But of course, first be a millionaire, then be a billionaire. Baruch Hashem Yahweh, I'm going to leave it at this. I'm going to pass it on to Rabbi Kefa. Any questions, I'm more than happy to cover your questions and, concerns. I'm here. I'm able to assist you and take all your questions on board and help you. But like I said, if you want to be benefited, and I say it again and again, be compliant with the Torah. The Torah compliance means keeping the festivals. It means keeping the Shabbat. It means permissible laws. It means tithing, Zadaqah. It means, being merciful to other people, being merciful to the Gentiles. All of those are enshrined in the Torah. You got to do all of those. And it's not hard. It's easy to do it. And Olivia last week indicated that through the law of manifestation, perfect law, he was able to attain his apartment. And Baruch Hashem Yahweh for that. And you too can as well. It took him 2 weeks. And so can you. So, my point is that you too can do it as well. But you got to remember, you got to apply it. If you're willing to apply it, then you can do it. So, having said that, what else can I tell you? What else can I tell you? The other thing I can tell you is, there was something in my mind, but I have to explain it. So there is a prop in the Torah. The Torah prop says that you can do it this way and you can get a blessing. Now, I'm going to be writing another book. And Eddie kindly has already produced a cover for me. It's probably going to be called Bullseye, the Law of Manifestation. So, that's something I'm going to be working on actively. And it's going to hone in systematically to help people, to you and other people, to give you the ability to produce whatever you want for yourself. Any desire you can meet. But again, apply the method and you'll get the desire. Thanks for that, Eddie. And so with that, I'm going to hand it to you, Rabbi Kefa. You guys, before I hand it to Rabbi Kefa, remember, according to the solar calendar, Hanukkah calendar, Enoch, the Passover, our new year begins 21st March. Do you remember? 21st March. And the Passover is 3rd April, according to the Hanukkah calendar. So, if you're gonna, do the Passover according to the lunar calendar, Jewish lunar calendar, then of course the dates are different. And, but if you are looking at Passover from a Hanukkah point of view, then you already have the dates, which we don't even have to think about it. The dates are already set to being the 3rd of April is our Passover annually without even a question. There's no guessing there. It doesn't change. But with the lunar calendar, the dates do change. And I believe that this year the Passover is going to be April 8, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be the Passover according to the lunar calendar. So mark these in your, in your books. There is the Feast of Purim in March as well. If you do the Feast of Purim, that is due time frame March. In fact, it might even be earlier than that actually. So I know most of you don't do it, and I know some of you do it. So those of you do it, do let me know if you do it, and if you want me to, let you know the dates, I can do that. but Purim it occurs before Passover, and generally Purim is when we celebrate the story of Esther and what happened there. And Purim, by the way, is generally this year March 9, March 10. Purim, March 9, March 10. But Purim is not a Torah festival. It's not commanded. But if you like to do it, you're more than welcome to do it. I always encourage you to do it. Okay? So with that, Rabbi Kefa, over to you to da for that. And Rabbi Kefa, let me know when you get the plates that are posted to you. Let me know when they arrive. Thank you. Tada.
Okay, yeah, Tada Kohen. I definitely will let you know. I did get a notice from the UPS store that there's a package available, so I would definitely get the plates there. And by the way, the man said this package was very heavy. I was like, okay. Really close friends with the man there. If I could be heard, can I get a one? I want to make sure I'm coming in. This is Rabbi Kefa coming in from home base here in San Antonio, Texas. Okay, it's always interesting and great 6 days of labor that have passed. Really learning a lot and continue to learn. How many of you can agree with me on that? My desire for all of you is that you continue to learn and you continue to grow and you continue to meet your marks. Now, I want to put this out there because in hearing the testimony from Oliver there in France and what happened to him. I want all of you, if you don't mind, to kind of give me and give the family a gist of where you are and what you're desiring for yourself. If you don't mind, just text it in like right now. What is your main focus right now? Remember, I asked a question a couple of Shabbats ago talking about what's important to you. Like right now in your life, what area are you focused on the most? Well, there may be many different areas, but right now, what's like the first thing on your plate? What's that thing that you think about most of the time? I mean, if you don't mind. And if you have to think about it for a minute, then so be it. But I'm pretty sure most of you already know off the cuff. The thing that that's driving you right now. What's your, like you watching some of these movies that say, what's your motivation? What's that thing what's that force that's driving you right now? What are you putting all of your energy into right now? You see, because it's really important. You may think, well, I want to kind of keep it private, but it's important that you write things down. And it's important that you acknowledge things and put them out there into the universe. When you physically see, and I know a lot of folks are truly happy being keyboard warriors. They sit behind and make up some great stories. but these are factual things that you see happen in your life now. And what are those things? You don't have to give me all of them. Just name the one most important thing that's on your plate, and you just keep taking servings of it daily, and it consumes you put all your energy into it, and that is your focus point. That's what you focus on. To top of that, a Torah, and I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to put it out there in the universe. A Torah says dental implant, Bukashim. I mean, these are everyday things, and this is what I love about learning at the feet of the Kohen, because he gives us the perfect law, perfect things that's going to help us in today's world, not in some fictitious world in the sky where we want all of these things that are mansion in the sky. No, we want our mansion now, and the Torah says it's dental implants, in her mansion that she wants, Rukashir. Eddie says a career. Now, Eddie, could you be more specific? Like, you want a career as a trash man? Do you want a career as a stockbroker? Do you want a career what do you want a career? Let's nail in on it. Abraham says obtaining another job. Okay, well, what kind of another job? You see, the perfect law needs to be perfect. You see, just like we see with the laws that are given to us, right? You see, all is possible, even the implant, right, Hakohen? And that's so true. Said from the Hakohen. I'm quoting his word. All is possible. There is nothing that is impossible. Billionaire status is possible if that's what you desire. And I know most folks in the airway, maybe money's not their thing, you see. Finance, great world traveling career, leading to freedom. Baruch Hashem. It won't lead you to freedom, Eddie. You will have freedom. Don't say it's going to lead you there. Say it was going to give you freedom. You have freedom. So we got to see what we have to do, just like with the bullseye, Eddie. Remember, I'm telling you, I saw that. I envisioned that just like a target, you see. Just like a target, straight, spot on, not hitting none of the outside borders, but you just dead center mass. So we want to be dead center mass with exactly what we want. Exactly what our marks are. Not somewhere out here in La La Land to where it take you to different places, you see. Jan says a better Hebrew wife. Okay. Oliver said generating $10,000 per month with my digital business. Now you see, that's spot on. You see, so when it does happen like it will happen, and it's going to happen for Oliver, then, you know, he knows that he knows that he knows that he's done it because the universe put it, it spelled it out and gave it to him just the way he wanted served. You go to a restaurant, steakhouse, you know, Texas has a lot of steakhouses. You go to the steakhouse and you say, well, when you order your steak, do you just say, well, can you just give me a steak, Tommy? Just give me a steak. Or do you say, because Tommy's going to ask you, if you generalize it, any steak restaurant worth its weight, they're going to sit there, they're going to query from you even more. They're going to say, okay, well, you want a steak, but how do you want it? Because if you just go to Tommy and say, hey, Tommy, just give me a steak, and Tommy brings you a steak that's barely cooked, and you know as a Hebrew, we don't eat stuff that's not barely cooked. Our stuff is cooked to cooktivity. I just made that word. Cooktivity. It's cooked to the cooktivity. We make sure our food is cooked. We don't eat none of this raw stuff, halfway cooked, blah, blah, blah. So that's why you don't want to miss out on a good steak because, you know, you didn't place your order right. So you want to make sure that your marks are center mass, dead bullseye. When you shoot that arrow, that quiver, it goes from your quiver, it goes right to center mass. And this is why I'm asking you these questions. Tada for that, and tada for your responses. Baruch Hashem. Blind person says obtaining good health. That's truly obtainable. That's true every day. That's obtainable, right? That is truly obtainable. I like to do that 16-hour fast. That works really, really well for the body. I tell you what. Stop eating at 8 o'clock and don't eat again till 8 o'clock p.m. and don't eat again till 12 noon. Oh, man, that's a brilliant fast. I find myself getting a lot of energy that way. And the body just feels like it's rejuvenated. I'm in my 20s, MIshpatim. I don't know about you, but my mindset is I'm in my 20s. That's where I'm at. I'm in my 20s, man. I feel that. And I know that I'm there. Well, how can you say that when you have gray hairs? That doesn't have anything to do with it. My daughter just made some toast. And the toast, when she looked at it, she said, wow, this toast didn't come out like I wanted it. But then she tasted it and she said, wow, this toast is great. So it's not what you see. It's what you taste. You see, because the outward appearance may not be that, tantalizing to you. May actually be a turnoff to you. But it's what you taste, it's what's on the inside that makes the difference. Isn't that so true? I mean, lessons that we learn from my daughter making toast. What a great lesson in that. Everything in life has a great lesson behind it. So, Lion King says survival and good health. Survival, what you mean by survival? You trying to get on the survival show or something like that? I mean, survival and good health. Because we know, Lion King, that we already have survival within the Torah. We survive. We like baby's kids. We multiply. We don't die. You see, we already have the survival kit that we need. That comes in the confines and under the umbrella of the Torah. And that's what's spelled out in here so apropos in our parsha, MIshpatim, is spelled out because let's set the stage. You know, let's set the stage here. You know, the smackdown is put on Egypt. The people are free. Now, one of the first things that you must learn about freedom, if you haven't already heard it from me and Akohi, I'll say it again, is that freedom is not free. Right? And just as I was given some instruction this week about, you know, these past 6 days of labor, about just note the countries, the most successful countries. Oh, Yajan, I'm sorry. Yajan says a baked potato with sour cream, beef, bacon, cheese, and butter. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem, that sounds good. Except without the bacon. I'm not going to put bacon on mine. But you know, we have to look at these countries and examine the most successful countries today. And when you examine the most successful countries today, luxury class, you make a good point. Everything is possible, even bacon, if it's turkey or beef bacon. Indeed, everything is possible. So I stand corrected, Yajan. If you want to throw you said beef bacon, my bad. Throw some beef bacon on there, Baruch Hashem. Order it up, serve it just like you like it. Don't have them come to you and just say, well, Johnny comes up to you, can you just give me a baked potato, sir? No, how do you want your baked potato? And this is what I desire for all of you as well, is to really hone in on your perfect law method. Because the perfect law method will work, but we have to work the perfect law method. The more specific you are, the better it will be for you. Because you know exactly what you want. You won't settle for whatever else, because this is exactly what I want. And to Doc for giving out your responses. I put them out there in the universe for you, too. I put them out there. So I think it's very, very important for us to understand that. And so when we look at these countries, right, go back to the countries. You look at the most successful countries out there today, the most prosperous countries out there. What's one of the key things that you'll see in all these countries is that there's law. There's like great law there. These countries, the most successful countries, will be the countries with great law. It may not be totally 100% perfect, but the laws are great. And the laws are beneficial and equal and showing equality to all people. So everybody has a chance. I know in America, you know, some folks have the conditioning that not everybody has a chance, but that's false. That's a false statement. Do you all understand in America that everybody has a chance? How's the mentality in the UK, Lion King and Lion Princess? Is it that same mentality that everybody has a chance, or just only a certain select group have a chance to do whatever they want to do and be as successful as they want to be? I don't know. I don't know how it is in the UK. Or is it the same old spiel that we get from the majority of the people here in North America, is they're hanging on to a crutch? Oh, well, I can't do that because the white man kept me down. I can't do that because my ancestors were slaves and we never got those opportunities. Or I can't do that because my father passed and he didn't leave me anything. I can't do that because I was the oldest of 10 children and we didn't have enough to go around, you see. Like what he says, in the UK, all can have it up to, it's up to each individual. Baruch Hashem. Everybody starts on a clean, on the same level playing field. And so that's very important when you look at freedom. Is that freedom is equal to all people. Equality. Is that everybody has the same lottie-dottie, the same opportunity is given, is presented to you. Now what you do with that opportunity is up to you. Some folks squander it. Some folks take advantage of it. Some folks embrace it. Some folks reject it. Whatever terminology you want to use. But that's what you're going to see as you study human nature. But more importantly, we need to study ourselves to see where we fit as students, where we fit. You need to be a student of yourself. This is why I like to probe and ask questions about yourself, so that you can really, dive into yourself and figure out, well, what do I like and what I don't like. Luxury Class says Hebrews are action people. Yes. We are action people. It's all about our actions. Words can come later, but let's look at your actions and then let your words follow later. But again, it's important to get the right action, correct? Because there's a lot of so-called Hebrews. You see here on this YouTube forum, there's a lot of so-called Hebrews that they do a lot of action, but the action isn't correct. It's not right action. It's not the perfect action, and it brings us back to the perfect law. And it brings us back to where we are in our Parsha MIshpatim. Okay, we get to smack down on Pharaoh, and the Jews come out, the Hebrews coming out looking like Mr. T, with all this jewelry and everything, and they see the mighty hand of God operate at the Sea of Reeds and split the sea, and the Hebrews walk on dry land. Everything, the stages said. So now we have freedom. Question is, what you going to do with your freedom? You have freedom. Now, to have freedom, we understand that freedom is not free. How many of you get that point? If you're going to have freedom, you understand freedom comes with a cost. You have to pay for freedom. How many of you really get that? And the payment can come in many forms. And one of those forms that the payment can come in is the ability to be able to subject yourself to a particular way of living or rules. Let's put it that way. You have to follow rules. You want to know why America is such a great shepherd nation? It's such a superpower? It's because there is an establishment of rules. Think about that for a minute. It's because there is an establishment of rules. Now, let's look at the polar opposite of an America. Let's look at a China. Full disclosure, my wife is Chinese, and I do have Chinese connections in a base in China. China's the same way. Think about it. Even though it's a communist country, what do they have in place? They have in place rules, don't they? You ever heard anything about China, or even been to China, you'll understand that they have rules in place. And those rules are strictly followed. Rules are important, Mishpaha. In order to have freedom, you must have rules. How many of you have rules for your house? Put up a capital R if you have rules for your house. There are certain rules that apply when in your bank. There's rules. You have rules that apply for your house. Okay, great. Stuff your responses, by the way. Folks are saying, yeah, I have rules. I put up R. I have these rules, capital R, because I have rules. Rules are important. Now, what happens when your house doesn't have rules? It becomes what? It becomes unruly, right? It becomes, like President Trump says, one of the words he likes to use, it becomes a disaster. Right? Chaos. There you go, Lion Princess. There's an Animal House, says a luxury class. So, look at these countries. Look at these countries that don't have rules, and you'll see the same thing. So, this is a universal principle that applies. Now, it's important to have rules, but it's important to have really, really good rules. Or like what we have within the confines and under the umbrella of the Torah, we have the perfect rules. How many of you would agree with me that the laws of Moses are the perfect rules? Our Kohen calls it the perfect law. It is that. It is just that. Because the perfect law has the perfect rules. These rules are perfect. And we see in the Parsha MIshpatim, these rules are explained out. Now, one of the most important things about rules is what? Is that the rules must be followed. What happens if the rules are not followed? Then an individual may find himself where? In somebody's prison institution. That's what happens here in America. Now, America has great rules, but how many of you would agree with me that America could work on some of their rules? I couldn't give you a great example of that. America could probably work on a lot of their rules to improve them and even make them better. Because there's some people, I mean, did you see the presidential pardons that went out? This by our president. these people are giving these sentences. You know, this woman giving this sentence, I think she only was like, got caught with drugs, or it was a drug sentence, and she was put in prison for 12 years behind a drug sentence. 12 years, I can't remember. But that was pardoned by the President Trump. And then he pardons this other guy who is totally not even in his party. How you say his name? Gaboyevich or something like. He has a really long last name. But he used to be, I think he was a governor of one of our states here in America, and he was sentenced to a long, lengthy sentence that was based on just erroneous. You see, it all goes back to judgments, and it goes back to justice, and it goes back to doing what's right. And this one mayor is not even a Republican. He's a Democrat. He was Democrat, whatever. You see, that's another point when we deal with rules and we deal with freedom, is that we must look at it on an equality or on an equal equal frame. Everybody gets the same take. If you're Republican, Democratic, whatever, Green Party, whatever, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you're a human being. And right ruling needs to be delved out, or needs to be put on display. That's so very important. It needs to be more important than put on display. It needs to be shown. It needs to be demonstrated. And this is what we see in our parsha here. We get the freedom. We're freed. How many of you in this room right now, you say, Rabbi, I am free. I am freedom. I'm free. Now, what do we do with that? You see, Hakoin gave you another great example. You know, when Hebrews got free and realized that they could have more than one wife. How many of you dealt with somebody like that at some way or another, when he realized, oh, I'm a Hebrew, so I can have more than one wife, so I'm going to go out here and I'm just get these wives. And you see, these are people that take their freedom, and just like we described, without following the rules, their relationships became what? Chaotic. And Hakoin told you himself, he was people phoning into him from the UK, and I got a couple phone calls over here too about women that were just very unhappy with the Torah of Moses. Why? It's because what they saw demonstrated was wrong. That's not the Torah of Moses they saw there. But because they did that, do you know, a lot of women were turned away from the Torah because of the demonstration of the Torah that they saw in our perfect law, of the demonstration that they saw given by their spouse, of how it needs to be, how the rules were followed. Do you know that? Many women were turned away from those of Moses. Maybe they ran back to Christianity or Catholicism. But they realized, well, if this is what the Torah of Moses is about, then I don't want to be a part of it. Many women were turned away just based on our patriarchal way and how, we can have plural marriages. We can. But just because we can, does it mean we need to do it? Not if you don't follow the rules. Not if you don't follow the rules. And what's one of the key rules, men in the room, or women too, because you should know this as well. If you want to take on another wife, what needs to happen? What's one of the key rules? Is that you don't mistreat the first wife. And that you keep that standard for the first wife at that standard, and even better. And improve on that standard. Don't let it dip down and drop, you see. Because the last thing you want to be called is a person that shows injustice. You don't want to be an unjust person. You want to show justice to every single lottie-dottie person. Same opportunity. Remember we talked about, you start from the same playing field. We see you at the same level with human beings here. That's why not everybody can be a judge. Because they don't know how to delve out justice. So a lot of these men, husbands, that were taking on all these wives, they were just totally bad judges and didn't give out justice fairly or rightly. And that's what happens. Now, from what I can see, Akohin, and maybe you can throw in some response as well with this, but what I see now, it has toned down a lot. We're not getting too many plural marriage questions, because folks realize the hard way that, the patriarchal way is not what it's all chopped out to be. It's not just about having all these wives, and then men realize, oh, I have to take care of them. I have to provide for them. I have to spend time with them equitably, and what? And in a just way. So now, it's kind of simmered down on all of the relationship issues dealing with the patriarchal way, because most folks realize, hey, I have this one wife, happy life. I'm going to keep her happy. I want to do right by her, and I'm going to keep calm, and I'm going to carry on. I don't want to stir up the pot. Yajan says that was a hard pill to swallow until I learned and understood what the meaning behind it was. Oh, indeed, Yajan. You see, but a lot of folks, they hear the, more than one wife thing, and then they just run without rules. Oh, that'd be the title of a great book, Running Without Rules. You begin to run without rules. And that's where most folks are today with the laws of Moses. They may not be under that umbrella, but they may be under the umbrella of Judaism. But they use the laws of Moses as the crutch, which is really not, because, they cover it with that, but it's really not, because they're not following the proper rules, the perfect law. This is why that perfect law book is a great book for anybody, everybody, friends, family members, and loved ones, because it gets to the meat and potatoes of the situation. And it just gets a situation of what? Of life. Of yourself, and how strong and how powerful you really are within yourself. How to know God and see God, because God is within you. The I am is within you. You don't have to go hunt him down. You don't have to go search for him. Seek inside yourself, and then you will find. You don't have to seek outside of yourself. If you spend many years doing that, I was one of them. I was seeking God, but I wasn't seeking God within myself. What a great revelation that was. But I was seeking God outside of myself. And guess what? I never found God. How many of you can agree with that statement? Or maybe you can sympathize and maybe empathize with that statement, because you're the same way. One time or another, you're just out there. You're seeking God outside of yourself. And you never found him. I never found him. I never did. And I look for God under crack and crevice. I'm telling you. Under high and low. High and low. Oh, I'm going to seek God. Oh, I'm seeking him. I'm seeking him. Where could he be? Where is he hiding? And all this time, God is within me. The I am is within me. Baruch Hashem. What a great revelation that was when I realized that I have the DNA of El Shaddai. I have his DNA. I looked at my 5-month-old son the other day, Nakshan, and you know what came to my mind? I'm looking at him, and we're playing, and he just looks at you with these eyes. I tell you, they melt in your mouth, not in your hand. I tell you, and you know the first thing that came to my mind is this: bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. I tell you what, and that verse, that statement became so real to me, Mishpatim. You know what I'm talking about, that have children. You look at your children, and that's the first, it comes to bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. That's beautiful, isn't it? That's beautiful. So I thought about it, and I meditated on this for a while. I tell you, it was an emotional moment for me. Really. Really. Life is real. Life is life. We sit here and we beget in life, and we're both the purpose. Okay, we should be back. That was a little quick get moved by the Power Talk. Should be back up and running. You can put up the ones if you do hear it coming through now. Should be back up and running. But the bone of my bone and the flesh of my flesh, that's real, isn't it? That really becomes real to you when you see it. You see the spiritual side become physical. And this is part and parcel of everything that you, and believe me, Nakshan, my son, was a mark for me. That was a mark. That was a mark that I was given a long time ago by the Kohi. It was a mark that I wanted for myself as well. Is to have a son. Is that my name and my legacy carries on after me. I mean, who doesn't want that? Especially you men in the room. I know there's not a one man in this room that wouldn't say they doesn't want that. Why? It's because that's built into your DNA. Whether you believe it or not, it is. That's perfect law. That's perfect. Is there, by the way, let me just put this out there. Is there any man in the room that doesn't want to have his name carry on? And there's crickets in the room for you listening via YouTube. So it's so very important that we understand it. So I'm thinking, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. And I'm saying, well, that's what the Abba says about me as well. And you as well. We're bone of his bone and we're flesh of his flesh. We have that same DNA inside of us. So how powerful are we? We're superhuman powerful. We're Avenger powerful, baby. That's real. That's what it is. And it all encapsulates in us under the freedom that we have within the perfect law. So freedom, if you're writing this down, freedom equals rules. Am I correct? Who would disagree with that statement? Freedom equals rules. Now, rules, that's a generalized statement. It's just like ordering a steak, correct? So it has to be what? Freedom equals the perfect rules. And remember I asked you all the question earlier, how many of you have rules in your house? All of you say, yeah, capital R, Rabbi, I have rules. So if I go to one person's house, say like if I go to Abrahu's house, he has his rule. And I go to Lion Princess' house, she has her rules. So if Abrahu's rules are not the same rules in the bait of Lion Princess, is it wrong? Is either one of the houses wrong? No, it's not, because the rules are based on what? On the leadership, who's in charge. They control and dictate what rules will apply in their house. So one of the key things to obeying rules is to be submissive to the rule. So we have to bow down to Moses. We never put nothing on top of Moses. We can't put Judaism on top of the laws of Moses. We can't do it. We have to bow down and submit and come up underneath the umbrella of the Torah. Am I correct? We're not trying to overstand nothing here. No, we're trying to come up underneath. So we can be submissive to the rules, you see. Luxury class says, I ask people to take their shoes off before entering home. They seem bothered by it. Yeah. Luxury class, I know how Corey have some, here's what you need to see with that. And again, Torah, we don't want to shame anybody, so luxury class, you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful with this sometimes. Because some people, you don't want to shame anybody, and some people don't wear socks. Some people have bad feet. And some people have, like, athlete's feet, so their feet have smells. So you have to, again, as a judge, you have to look at, and I thank Mother Wisdom for giving me the wisdom to be a judge, as the Kohen has appointed me a judge. So you know what I did? I asked Mother Wisdom for wisdom to be a judge. And so you have to take all these things into consideration. Yeah, and you have to be careful. So luxury class, when you do that and implement that rule, and this, how many of you others have the same rule like luxury class? I have this rule as well. But you know what you have to implement? I went and bought some surgical. The surgery, the shoes that it's like these little covers, shoe covers you put over your shoes. Yeah, I bought some of those for these people who have issues with, okay, well, maybe you don't want to take your shoes off. Yeah, contractors use them as well. Use them in hospitals, use them in, So maybe you want to get those as well so you don't offend anyone. Because, again, the last thing we want to do is shame anybody. So I'm giving you information that I do in my body. So if you don't want to take off your shoes, I get it. Your feet kind of smelly. Okay, I get that. Oh, I may be shaming you and offending you by doing that. Okay, here, put on these blue booties that I have for you here, or shoe covers that'll go over your shoes, and everything will just be fine and dandy, correct? So do you see this? That right there is just a great example of how the freedoms that we have within our Torah, right? You see how open our Torah is? So much bendable, you see. And at the end of the day, most people see that as a great compliment, and they see that, they're like, wow, wow, I need to start doing this in my house as well, taking off my shoes. Yeah, because you don't want to bring from what's outside in. You want to leave what's outside out. You don't want to bring it in. A lot of people don't like, Luxury Class says, I just don't like junk tracked in. Indeed. Junk and germs as well. Put another G with the J. The germs that come in as well. You see, Yachan says there's a situation for everything, says Father Yahweh. There is. There's a solution for every situation. There truly is. And get this. There's a righteous solution, and there's a perfect solution for every situation. Believe me, there is. And if you don't believe me, phone in the Kohen. You see, and he'll be able to you'll be like, wow, I never thought about it that way. I never thought I could do that. And you can. And it's totally permissible. So much freedom that we have within the Torah. But at the end of the day, getting back to what this great example that we're dealing with what Luxury Class is talking about, with just taking off the shoes in the house. At the end of the day, we don't want to be offensive to anybody. And we always want to show Torah in the perfect light that it is. You understand what I'm saying? And also no cursing God's name too. I get angry about that. And you have a right to as well. When people worked in my house, oh yeah. And you have a right to as well. And yeah, I would definitely make that statement as well. You just tell them, say, hey, put it in their language. Hey, say, look, I'm a holy man. I don't like God's name used outside of his name. Period. You tell them that way. Now, I'm a holy man. They may not understand you and all that and the God of Israel. But you say, hey, I'm a holy man. And I don't like God's name used outside of his name. I'm very particular about that. This is a holy place. This is my sanctuary. You cuss in your church, then don't cuss, because this is my church. So you got to put it down and get down to that level. And that's so very important that we do this. And this is why when we look at MIshpatim, it does the same thing. We're given rules. We're given directives. We're given instruction. We read it. It comes right off the cuff. In Exodus, again, I read from the Abrahamic-Faith Bible. Do yourself a great service and get this Bible to help. And I know a lot of changes have been put in there. A lot of additions have been added. So it's a great time to purchase it as well. Get a newer edition. But Exodus chapter 21, verse 1. Now these are the judgments which you shall set. Get freedom. Now there gotta be judgments. There gotta be rules that are set. Because without rules set, then there's truly no freedom, correct? Well, you're saying, wait a minute, well, slavery has rules. Yeah, but those rules are oppressive. And in slavery, you're not free to do whatever. So even in freedom, there must be rules. There must be judgments that are set. Because what the point I want to hone in on today is at the end of the day, we do not want to be seen as unjust. Say that word with me. Injustice. You don't want to show injustice to any human being. And when you look at every one of the situations in this parasha, it talks about the justice of a servant, the justice of a marriage, the justice of a relationship, the justice of civil justice. Why? Because we don't want to be seen as the polar opposite of injustice, of being unjust to each one of these situations. Are you with me? How many of you with me this day? Say, I'm with you, Rabbi. I'm right with you. I'm totally with you. And see, that's one of the key things that you don't want to do as the people of the books, because guess what? You're being watched. I just want to let you know you've been watched, and this is no conspiracy theory, but you are being watched by everybody around you. Why? It's just because of the person that you are. And believe it or not, you can be as gentle as a lion. Or let's just say as gentle as a lamb. But you have the actions of a lion. Oh, I'm going to say that again. To top of that, you can be as gentle as a lamb, but your actions are that of a lion. And some people are intimidated by that. How many of you, that phrase resonates with you? I had someone come up to me today and say, this 6 days later, like, hey, you intimidate me. I was like, really? How do I do that? Because my energy is so freaking strong. And people they're intimidated. And I said, oh, well, I totally don't mean to do that. This is just my nature. It's who I am. They say, I'm so intimidated by you because you come across so strong. You're so positive. It's like, it must be the lion in me, but believe me, I'm a lamb. How many of you know what I'm talking about? And you don't mean to be that way. I mean, it's just who you are. You come in and you brighten up a room. You come in and you just light a room up. Hey, good morning. What another day in paradise. And they're like, what the hell? Believe me, that's what people, I'm telling you, that's what, they're like, wait, where'd you come from? I come from the same place you came from. But that intimidates people. This joy and this love that I have of life and communication, that intimidates some people. And so what you have to do, I mean, yeah, I took it. And they're like, oh, yeah. I said, you know what? I don't mean to be offensive in any kind of way. It's just who I am. I'm just a happy person. I don't get depressed. I don't do that. I work through depression and anger through happiness. I'm going to show and be, I have my ups and downs, like everybody does. Lack of sleep, me and one of them with Nakshan running around here. I'm up walking around here, 4 or 5 hours, man. 2 hours of sleep with Nakshan, because, Nakshan, I desire to help my wife out as much as I can. And I understand, child rearing is a partnership. I just can't throw all that on my wife to do. That's not justice. That's injustice, correct? But still, I'm not going to let that change the character of who I am. You see? But some people, they can't take all this happiness and this energy, this positive energy. Because I am positive energy. And folks can't handle it. That's beyond their comprehension. And so it offends them. So at the end of the day, we never want to offend people. Now, is there such thing as a perfect world where we can't not offend everybody? That's just not realistic. We got to be real. But when you can sit down and you can reason with one another, you can explain, okay, I get your point. I see what you're saying here. But I just love life. And apparently there's a lot of people in this world that don't love life. And they don't appreciate life. And they don't appreciate being about it. And so it offends them. So I let the person know, hey, that my intent is not to offend you in any kind of way. But this is just who I am. This is who I am. I love life. And I will never stop loving life. And I love who I am. Because guess what, MIshpatim? There's a lot of people around you who don't love who they are. Hey, MIshpatim, there's a lot of people around you, newsflash, that hate life. And they hate themselves. And so when you come in bringing light to that, what happens to the darkness? it's going to want to go away. It's going to want to hang around light. Am I correct? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Oh, he said, guys, your family, you're a light to the world. That stuff is real. But here's the question. What if the world don't want light? Do you quit? Does that make your light less luminous? I submit to you not. I submit to you that the darkness will just go away. Because it cannot reside with light. And that's just what happens. So the person made their point and then he just went away. I'm intimidated by your enthusiasm. Okay. Well, I can't do nothing about that. But we can part ways respectfully. You can go be around the negative crowd. Just like we read in our parsha here, we're told what? To stay away. Look at Exodus chapter 23, verse 1. Again, the justice of proper relationships. Friend, family member, loved ones is all relationships. Exodus chapter 23, verse 1. You shall not circulate false report. Do not put your hand with the wicked to be a wicked witness. Look at verse 2 of that Exodus 23. You shall not follow a crowd to do evil. Wow. Nor shall you testify in a dispute so as to turn aside after many to pervert justice. That's heavy. But a lot of folks are doing this. What does the consensus say? That's what Judaism says. Let's follow the consensus. But the consensus may be wicked and evil. But the consensus has the numbers. Well, we don't want to pervert justice. That's what we're told in our translation in the Abrahamic-Faith Bible. We don't want to pervert justice, and we don't want to be unjust with justice. How many of you want perverted justice delved out to you? None of us do. Then don't delve out perverted justice to somebody else. You see? So go hang around that crowd that likes to, be unhappy and gossip. But I'm not going to follow that crowd. So we can respectfully depart and go our separate ways. And when we meet up again, I'm going to still just be this man full of energy, full of positive energy, and love and compassion for all humanity. But we can part ways respectfully. Because I don't want to hang around your crowd. And I guess that was their way of saying, well, I don't want to be around your crowd of people. Well, so be it. Go there. There's many crowds you can hang with. Find the crowd that suits your happiness or your unhappiness. How many of you know what I'm talking about? How many of you have ran into a situation? Exactly. Look, this is human nature stuff. This is relationship stuff that we have to learn how to get on with our fellow human beings. And this is why MIshpatim is laying out the way we do it and how we do it. Laying out the rules. Now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. The rules are set. Baruch Hashem for the rules being set. And these rules, we got the perfect law. It's perfect. If we learn to delve out servant justice the way we do it, we're perfect. If we learn how to delve out the marriage justice the way we do it, under the laws of Moses, we're perfect. If we learn how to give out the, relationship justice and civil justice, then we become perfect. We are perfect. Why? It's because, we have set, and our forefathers were told this part with everything Moses that God said we would do it. We're set, and that's what we do. You see. So I think it's very, very important that we understand that, MIshpatim. Very, very, very important. very, very, very important that we understand that. So very important. That we have to learn how to get on with human nature and quit trying to be judgmental and condemn everybody and be the judge. Truth seeker. You see what truth seeker said? You see, that's a great example of truth seeker. That's what truth seeker says. You see, come in thinking that they know everything. You see, that's the difference between overstanding our way of living and getting up under and submitting to something. But again, you're going to run into these types, and they're going to come in, and you're going to see them in your life, and they may come in and they confront you and tell you, hey, you're not Israel. Look at your color. You're not Israel. This, that, the other. You're too happy. I don't like you. You intimidate me because of what you stand for. What do you believe in? I don't believe in that. And what are you going to do with these people? You leave them to it. You tell them to stick to your crowd respectfully, and I'll stick to mine. You tell them to go and have a happy life, and you'll have your happy life. Go forth, be fruitful, and multiply the earth. Be fruitful, multiply the earth. Don't divide and subtract by protesting and condemning and putting down people and being judgmental. Let's just give out perfect justice. That's what the Parsha of MIshpatim is all about, perfect justice. This is how you demonstrate, execute perfect justice. And it's laid before us in our Torah so beautifully. And we can take the set judgments and apply them today in 2020, can't we? Very easy. Now, we may need to tweak some things here and there and make it more flexible, right? Like we discussed with luxury classes situation, with the shoes on, shoes off method. And that's what the Kohanim is here for, is to give us that guidance. Because we don't know the Torah on our own. We don't have it. We don't have the keys to the kingdom. But Moses does. Aaron and his sons, they do. And we see that pattern, that same pattern that we read in this parsha. If you look at the end of this parsha, I think it's what, 25, verse 25, no, chapter 25, or is it chapter 24? It's chapter 24. The end of Exodus chapter 24. Look at what it says there. I mean, this is so spot on. It's so spot on. Look at verse 12. And then Yahweh said to Moses, come to me on the mountain and be there, and I will give you the tablets of stone and the Torah commandments which I have written, that you may teach them. My goodness. So Moshe arose with his assistant Yahushua, and Moshe and Musa went up to the mountain of Elohim, and he said to the elders, wait here. You see, that's here we are. We the wait here crew. Wait here for us until we come back to you. Indeed, Aaron and Hur are with you. Who's with them? While we wait, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have difficulty, let him go to them. Wow. Do you see it? Spelled out again for you right in our Torah so beautifully. Spelled out in our Torah so beautifully right there. So if we have any kind of discrepancy, any kind of issue with the Torah, is Moses with us today? Can I send Moses a tweet right now on Instagram? Is Moses with us right now, Mishpatim, in the physical? Is he here? Here's the pattern. It's laid out for you. When Moses is away, what happens? Moses say, so Moshe arose with his assistant, Yahushua, And he went up to the mountain of Elohim, and he said to the elders, what did he say? He said, wait here for us until we come back to you. Indeed, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have a difficulty, let him go to them. Then Moshe went up into the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. Baruch Hashem. Moshe, you're the greatest. Now the glory of Elohim rested on the Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And on the 7th day, he called to Moshe out of the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the glory of Yahweh was like consuming fire on top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. So Moshe went into the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain. And Moshe was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Moshe was. But when Moshe's not here, Moshe has given charge to who? He told the elders, okay, all you elders of Israel, you wait for us till we come back. And indeed, Aaron's not here either, but his sons are, and Hur are with you. If any man has a difficulty, let him go to them. Spelled out for you again. We said time and time again, but here it is again, spelled out for you. For any difficulties. You see, this is why Judaism today has so many difficulties for the most part, is because they don't go back to Aaron and his sons for any kind of difficulty. They just say, oh, we can solve them ourselves. Let's create this method and that method. Let's create this tradition and that tradition and do this and blah, blah, blah. God will understand. But at the end of the day, that's not the justice that was set. At the end of the day, that's not perfect law. I don't want just any kind of law. I want the perfect law. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I want. I just don't want any kind of law. I am so happy and grateful to be attached to the Kohen, because I am attached to the perfect law. Yeah, I knew about the Torah. Matter of fact, I was told by that still small voice, the Chochmah, my will is my word. That's what I was told. So I knew, okay, the Torah is where I need to be, but then where do I go from there? It's just like getting freedom. Then what do? You must set some rules. You must set the justice in place. That's the first thing that the God of Israel was concerned about, was making sure that justice was not given out. Not just to who? Not just for the Hebrews and their descendants, but for everybody, lottie-dottie, that the Hebrews come in contact with. This is how you treat them. On the same playing field. You're going to treat them the same way. With respect, with honor, with compassion, and with love. With dignity. That's so important for us to understand. So very, very important. Now, traditions have their place, but they will never supersede the umbrella of the laws of Moses. Never, never, never. Traditions can fall up under the umbrella of Moses, but don't try to come on top. Don't try to usurp the laws of Moses. That's when there's going to be a problem. Now, all of you, and how many of you in this room have traditions in your house? If you have rules, I know you have traditions as well. There may be certain traditions that you have, but I guarantee you, your traditions for your house don't supersede the laws of Moses. And say, well, yeah, Moses said this, but I'm going to start this tradition in my house. See, that's when you run into problems. That's when you run into the problems. It becomes problematic. And then your life becomes a disaster. Because when you operate outside of the perfect law, you risk the opportunity for the negative forces to come in and wreck your life. Wow, because it's you wrecking your life because of the negativity that you will have. You lose that connectivity, that positive connectivity with source energy, with source power, you see. One of the traditions I have in my faith is all of our high holy days, our festival days. I like to eat cheesecake. I always have cheesecake on board, cheesecake and chocolate. The two C's. Cheesecake and chocolate. That's the two. That's my thing. So even after we do our fast with Yom Kippur, cheesecake and chocolate is waiting. After I do my affliction, cheesecake and chocolate, even with that festival. So that's a tradition that I have. But does that tradition supersede the laws of Moses? No way, never. So what we're saying is traditions aren't bad. Traditions have their place. Just make sure that they don't come out of alignment and stay within the rules. We're Israelis. We have rules, MIshpatim. That's just what it is. Christianity likes to tout our rules all the time. Oh, y'all have too many rules. It's just too many rules. That's why we have such great order. That's why we have such great governments, because we do have rules. Right? I mean, come on. That's what makes it so great. That's what makes it so perfect. It's because we have the perfect rules. But again, as I stated earlier, many folks are not going to want to follow the perfect rules. And then you become offensive to those people. How many of you ever ran into a situation that I just described? You become intimidating to certain people. You become hated by certain people just because you follow the perfect law. And you don't even know these people from Adam, and they come like, well, I don't like the way you do this. I don't like the way you do this. Oh, you're too happy. Oh, you're too loud. You're overbearing. What? What do you mean? I just told you to have a nice day. Another day in paradise. Oh, well, this is not paradise. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Maybe this is not your paradise. But for me, it's another day in paradise, baby. Oh, this is not paradise. Is this your paradise? Oh, they become so angry. I'm like, yeah, I know where you're at by your actions. So again, it's all about, getting on with humanity and not offending anybody. And doing your best not to offend anybody. But at the end of the day, are you going to be, offensive free? No, you're going to, just you being free and living your life by embracing the laws of Moses is going to be offensive to some people. That statement I just said, is that true for anybody in this room? That statement I just made is that regardless, you're not going to be able to, please everybody that you come in contact with, because, people just not going to like that you're so happy, that you're so successful. You see, that you're so at peace. Some folks just don't like that. And some folks, their life are just the opposite of that. Some folks just don't like that. And that's just what it is. Their state of being is of the negative side of energies. And that's how they live their life. So they think everybody around them should be the same way. And this is why we're told in our set rules that, hey, don't hang around these crowds. I'm paraphrasing. Don't hang around these crowds of negative people, of negative energy, people that want to do wicked things, not trying to meet marks. They trying to, not trying to make marks or meet marks. They trying to be mark destroyers. Don't hang around these people. Stay away from these crowds. It's not where you belong. Distance yourself from these people. And you do yourself a great service going forward. So the stage has been set for us. Justice has been set. very important that we consider that going forward. Case-by-case basis. And so you as a proper judge of your house, ruler of your home, you have to, have that mindset of consideration. And always considering, and again, there's so many different scenarios that can take place in humanity. It's because we're all different. That's why when folks come into these rooms and make these statements, just like outlandish, generalized statements that, that shows me that these people, they lack understanding because they're too busy trying to overstand. Oh, I'm way over that point. That was easy to understand. It's just blah, 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 blah. But just like our Queen told you, a lot of folks, they're skewed because they take their religion from that New Testament, which really has no weight whatsoever. It's basically just our history. That's it. The history of Israelis. That's all it is, really. There's no juice to it, as I Queen told you. If you're making Kool-Aid, you just put the powder and the water in, but there's no sugar. It don't have, you know what I mean? It don't have the sugar to it. So it's just like, okay, yeah. And so this is why, so I really, my heart goes out to these people because, they put all their chips in on the New Testament. And what comes out of that is you get nothingness statements like this. And you're like, wow. My heart goes out to these people. It's because they totally how many of you know folks that are just totally all in with the New Testament? They're all in. If they're gamblers, they put all their chips in for New Testament or bust. And so what you get is just like, my goodness, you get, when they speak or just in their actions, you realize, wow, are you really just this misunderstood? See, that shows you that the New Testament has no water and it has no weight to it whatsoever. It's just like, it's just like history. That's all it is. But when you try to take that and bait and put a spiritual spin on it, it just doesn't work, does it? It didn't work for me, and it didn't work for you. Because I guarantee, how many of you in this room tried that? You tried it. You went all in with the NT, and it just didn't work. It just didn't. It had no water, it had no weight to it whatsoever. So then you continue to seek, and you continue to search. You continue, because it had no weight to it. It was just blah. It was like cooking meat without seasoning it. It's just like blah. Just nothing. And so this is why, folks, you get these nothing statements that just come out. Just nothingness statements. And they have nothing to it. Oh, don't call yourself. I think that's like the second time I heard that statement today. People come through this room. They come in, peek in. Hey, don't call yourself a rabbi. Bye. I'm like, oh my God. Is that all you got to say? I mean, you got to study. I mean, you got to be students of human nature here. And so they come in judging you. Oh, well, this is the wrong room because they're calling themselves rabbis. I mean, it's just blah. You're like, blah. Is that all you have, sir? Is that? And see, again, has no water, has no weight to it whatsoever. And that's what you're going to find with family members, friends, and loved ones. And so I can see why HaKohen will get angry and sin not when people come to him with this foolishness. Because it's just, and yet they think they're carrying all the water and they have all the weight in the world. And there's just nothing there. It's just like, duh. You basing your whole life and your whole livelihood. You going through life and sitting on weightlessness stuff that just, oh my goodness, it's useless. I'm going to say, these are idiots. They don't even pay attention to them. Don't even pay attention to them. They have no respect to a teacher whatsoever. Yet, Jesus had disciples, and what did his disciples call him? Master. But they don't see that. They don't see that. So nobody else can have disciples too? I mean, my goodness. It's just, but again, you're going to find people like this. Not only they come through this forum, you're going to find people like that are your family members, friends, and loved ones. Did they put all their chips in on the New Testament? all their weight. And you see it, and it's like they have nothing. And so you have to be mindful of this and go down to their level, because you have to go down to their level. Otherwise you'll be seen as offensive to them. And they may already see you as offensive, because your umbrella is the laws of Moses. You stand. Torah is king in your life. Torah is king in your life. And so you'll find that. You'll find that time and time again. Not just coming through this room. They'll come through this room, but you'll find, and people will come up to you and they'll say things derogatory towards you, or very, condescending toward you, or very let's just say, how many of you had some person come up to you and tell you something religious? I'll put it that way. They'll tell you something that's just religious. The Bible says, don't call yourself a rabbi. I'm like, okay. What do you want me? It doesn't matter. I mean, that's not going to change the person who I am just because you don't call me a rabbi. So what? What does that have to do with beans in Colombia? I don't get that. So you're gonna run into these kind of people, and so you just leave them to it. And you disassociate, or what we call, you distance yourself from these kind of individuals, because you don't need that kind of energy around you. You just don't need it. And we're told in our set laws here to stay away from those crowds. See, these kind of crowds you don't want to be with, you see. Lusher class says, I love the words of Master Yeshua, but he upheld the Torah and the prophets. Oh, indeed. And most of his words were about justice and injustices, or it was right back to what did Moses say. All his words were right in coinciding with the Torah, period. What a great Messiah he was. While you have some other folks running around here calling themselves Messiah, and their words are diddly squat, have no water and have no weight to them. And they leave people in confusion. In chaotic livelihoods. And you're like, well, wait a minute, you proclaim to be a Messiah. Yet, look at the evidence on the ground. Look at the physical manifestation of your spiritual principle of being called a Messiah, anointed one. Well, where's the anointing? Let's see it. You see, again, most folks in religion say a lot of good things, but their actions are just mute and just blah. That is what it is at the end of the day. So you leave them to their vices. You just leave them to it. But that's what you're going to find. This is why, I love for these people to come in this room like this, because you begin to see the difference between perfect law and idiot law. Come on, that's it. And then at the end of the day, you ignoramus law, and then you get perfect law. And you see them demonstrated physically before you. Just what people say, how they think. And what comes out of their mouth, and the action that they take. I have nothing against Christians. I have nothing against Catholics. I have nothing against religion. I have nothing against people that follow Judaism. I have nothing against that. I encourage you, if that was make you happy, so be it. But don't get confrontational with it. I'm never going to get confrontational with the Torah. I've never been that way. I just been. Why do we have to confront people with it? We don't. It's the perfect law. We don't need to confront people. But my thing is, why do you notice, and Cody probably notices this a lot too, why do religious people feel like they have to be confrontational? You know what I mean? They feel like they have to become, and they feel like they have to be right because they're right, but they have no evidence of rightness, of right ruling, of righteousness. Because what? The NT has no water, no weight to it whatsoever. Especially how they begin to adapt customs and add customs and tradition to it. It's like, my goodness. They don't realize that Jesus was an Israeli. Jesus wasn't a Christian. I don't get it. But with their custom and tradition, they done converted him into a Christian, into a Catholic. Believe that. Believe it. Believe it. On that note, I'm going to leave you on that note. But again, I think it's important that we understand, where we are, and we don't want to give out injustice. And I find that religion is chock-a-block with people that just want to give out injustice. You're going to come into this room, and you're going to come or talk to somebody, and you're just going to delve out just unjust statements, just with, not taking into consideration nothing because you want to be judgmental. You want to be a judge. You want to sit in the judgment seat. But remember what the Master said about wanting to sit in the judgment seat. So I just sit back and let people be judges. And I'm more on the side of compassion. I tell you, that's my wheelhouse. Compassion, love, happiness, and peace. That's where I'm at. That's my wheelhouse. And you let those people that want to come out and judge, let them judge all they want to. But that's the religious makeup, so you need to be prepared for that. You need to be prepared for that because you're going to get that. The religious makeup is to judge, is to be confrontational. It's to tell you what you're doing wrong. It's to tell you you're not meeting your marks. They have no mark is. They too busy with center chicken dinner. Leave them to it. Leave them to it, MIshpatim. Live your life and love your life because life is beautiful. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up and we'll open it up for any questions. And by next Shabbat we'll definitely have everything nailed down with the copper plates and the stainless steel plates, and we'll be able to start. You guys will be able to start placing orders. My desire is to come up with a order form sheet that I'll be able to email out to all of you guys, and you can just fill out the order form sheet, email it back to me, and we'll place your orders that way. So, because I want to keep record of everything really tight. So, what's the price? That we'll have that nailed down next Shabbat as well, for sure. Next Shabbat we'll have that nailed down as well, because it may vary a little bit here and there. We may see. We're going to nail all that down, but we'll have it all in writing, because just like Luxury Class said, and quoting the Master, it is written. It is written. So we'll have it all down in writing. So I think, you'll be able to pay with PayPal, no problem. You'll be able to pay with PayPal. It won't be an issue there. No worries. And for those that want to use snail mail because they think there's some kind of conspiracy theory with, credit cards, because we have those in there as well. So I don't want to shame it, so you can do snail mail as well. So everything will be covered, believe you me. If we have to send this via carrier pigeon, whatever we have to do, we're going to make it work. That's the flexibility of the Torah. Back over to you, Akohin. We'll leave it open for any questions. If you have any questions, shoot them out, and believe me. Smoke signals, Oliver, for our Native American brethren. Smoke signals. We'll get it out any way we need to get it out. We'll get it out to you. That's how we roll here. We're open to all, just like our forefather Abraham. Open to all. Doors are always open. So over to you, Hakohin. Any questions? If not, you all have a great 6 days of labor ahead. Great Shabbat. Enjoy the time. Shalom, shalom, and Shabbat shalom to you. Over there across the pond, shalom, shalom to you. I know it's getting late over there. But, over to you, Hakohin. And we leave it open any questions.
Okay, Todah for that, Rabbi Kefa. And before I take on the questions, some of them people posted earlier. I think I was signed in with a different name, and I had no admin rights, so I had to re-sign in. So I've lost that screen with the questions. I may want you to post your questions again regarding what manifestations you're desiring, then I can give you a quick synopsis here how to go about it. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention regarding head covering. This is a topic that we covered a while ago. And, there was a lot of controversy around head covering. Some people wanted to do it, others were doing it, and, some spouses wanted to force their wives with head coverings, and so on and so forth. Basically, the gist of it is this. Eventually, we came to this ruling that I said that head covering and beards as well. We'll come to beards as well. So head coverings, we basically said it's up to your husband whether he wants to impose you head covering or not, that you should not be wearing a head covering when you go to your job. And we said the only time you should put your head covering on is when you pray. Now let me go one step further. I know that a lot of the ladies, they wear wigs in the West. And a lot of the Jews do today, by the way. A lot of the Jews wear wigs as well, and the women too. So, by the way, wig is considered a head covering. If you have a wig on, you do not need to wear any head covering. It is considered a head covering. So that's a plus point on top of that. If you are wearing a wig, that's considered a head covering already. So you don't need to additionally put a wrap on top of it and say, oh, I need to now put a wrap. No, you don't need no wraps. Wig is considered head covering. So that's that's something I wanted to make sure that you understood, that you don't need a head covering. If you have hair on, it is considered a head covering, and it is perfectly permissible according to the Torah. Now, the Torah did not enforce head covering, by the way. It was a tradition. It was something that women took upon themselves. It was never enforced. So, generally in the ancient world, head covering was a symbol of a woman being married or a woman being single. It was seen in different lights. So, women that were generally married, they would be able to keep their head covered at times, and people will know they are married. And women who didn't keep head covering, people will know they are single. We don't have that problem today. There are plenty of dating sites that tell you women are single or not single. Or when you go outside, traditionally women wear rings and men wear rings traditionally, wedding bands, and they're married or not married. But so it's not the same deal. So head covering is not such a big issue today as it used to be in the past. However, as I said, at all times, my suggestion to you is, if you are not wearing head covering generally, I'd encourage you to wear it at least just during your devotion times to God. During your devotion times, wear it, and that's great. Other times, work, play, whatever, you don't need to wear it unless you're like me. You like wearing a hat, then that's your head covering already. So, it's entirely up to you. There's no force, and Torah doesn't command it in such a way either. So that covers that. Now the beards, the same thing. Beards, people are taking the commandment from the Torah the wrong way, which says do not cut your beards. It is not talking about shaving. And let me give you another interesting tidbit. You're allowed to shave your entire hair off with a electric razor right down to the T. You don't even have to have a single hair, and it's permitted. Okay? Because the Torah said, do not cut your beards. The Torah did not say, don't shave. So, a lot of people took that to be, well, maybe I shouldn't use a Gillette razor blade. That's all nonsense. Look, take it from me, you can shave all you like. Because that was a custom to prevent idolatry. It was long ago. It is no longer the case. We do not live in a race today with idolatry practices, and so we do not go about, doing all of that. Because that was done at a time when the pagans around us were not traditional paganists today. Today's people who don't believe in God, they don't erect idols in their homes. In the ancient world, it was a heck of a lot of paganism going on. So, hence why it was a time. Yeah, sure, Lakshmi class asked the question. The beard, as I said earlier, it was to do with the custom in the ancient world of paganism to cut their face. So we were told not to do the same thing. Today you don't have that issue. You can have a beard. You can have a beard if you like, or you can shave it completely if you like. It is not a requirement to keep a beard. There is no law that says thou shalt keep a beard. There's no law, so we do not follow it in such a way. This is why you see many rabbis, you see many Jewish rabbis with no beard at all. Yet you see some with long beards, running to their knees, but it's not a requirement. So you can shave your beard, you can cut your hair. In fact, modern Judaism, under the Orthodox rabbinic laws, which is, mitzvah rabbanan, the laws of the rabbis state that you can shave your entire facial hair with a electric razor, and there's no sin upon you for that. Now, of course, you may not go so far as to buy an electric razor. Maybe it costs you $28, $30, and you might say, well, what the heck, I can get a Gillette razor for $5, with 3 blades in there, so I don't need to spend $28 for one, and that's fine. That's fine, because God is not blind, and God is not, lame, and God is, able to see everything. And we don't live in that culture. We don't live under that context where that law was applied. The law's application was for a time when we had a temple erected, We had a tabernacle. We do not have a temple today. So until the temple stands, technically the law is deactivated, until that happens. So in essence, if you wanted to, keep a 10-foot beard as Father Christmas, you're welcome to do so. I don't encourage you otherwise. And sure, luxury class, you can ask a question. And Kefa saying that my wife and baby do not like the beard. They're happy that I do not have one. Happy wife, happy life. Yeah, I mean, you got to look at your home as well. And God always wants a happy home, and there is no, like I said, there's no commandment that says thou shalt not. So keep a beard, or thou shalt keep a beard. So, we don't want to extend things like rabbinic law and make it harder for people to do so. Now, you posted some suggestions regarding your manifestations that you're desiring. Do you want to quickly post them so I can quickly answer them before I shut the room down? Because I think it'd be appropriate for me to do so, is to give you, some of this which is important. Like, for instance, somebody mentioned that they wanted a spouse. Wear a wedding band. Wear a wedding band and imagine yourself sitting with your spouse in a hotel environment or in a home environment where you're congratulating each other, or maybe you're sitting with your spouse in a restaurant and you're celebrating your anniversary. That would be a great example of being at a place, at an end, where you're sitting with your spouse and you're having an anniversary and you'll get your spouse. No problem. So that's the way you should be visualizing it. Luxury class, you're saying that I like to grow a beard, but I let grow 3-4 weeks and then I make it gone. Yeah, that's fine, luxury class. Like I said, it is not a requirement. There is no Torah law that states that you have to have a beard. Some of our people in the ancient world had a beard, and some of them didn't. Yes, you can go to the mic.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. The reason I wanted to jump on the mic quickly is I appreciate your points, definitely about the beard issue. There isn't obviously a command that you have to have a beard. I almost wonder if it was a given that people, especially back in that day, definitely men had beards. It was almost a given that they would have it. I don't know if there's evidence of that, but really what I wanted to ask is the way the command is about the part. Could you elaborate further on what part was not to be shaved like the nations, if I understood you correctly? Because I know that I've almost I've seen certain beards that mimic what I thought to be ancient history of how like the nations would sometimes keep their beards like in idolatry ways. Maybe it's a stretch of what I'm saying. There were certain designs and certain ways they would cut their beard that I believe was attempting to mimic the idolatry of the heathens at that time. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I apologize for not being so crystal clear in my question, but could it have been something the way the nations had kept their beard and how they cut certain parts of it, and maybe it was a praise to their false gods, so to speak? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Mike, over. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'll pull up the passage in Leviticus 19. If you give me a moment, Vayikra 19:27, which basically says as follows. It says that you shall not round the corners of your heads, neither shall you destroy the peyot. Now, peyot is a Hebrew word which means the sides, or technically the edge of your cheekbone. And it does not, sides of your beard, then it kind of, the peyot side of your beard. Peyot basically is just the edge. You shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any tattoos upon you. I am Yahweh. Now, all this context is not talking about making normal tattoos like a flower, a butterfly. All of those are allowed. It's not talking about keeping a beard or not keeping a beard. Just as you said, in the ancient world, there was practices of the nations doing idolatry for their false gods or their gods. And That's what Yahweh basically told the house of Israel, that you are not to copy them. That's basically it. There is evidence that some of our people had beards, and there's evidence that other people did not have beards. So both apply, Look, Joseph, who understood Torah, had no beard. He was completely shaven, like an Egyptian, because most of the Egyptians had no beards either. So again, there was no sin upon him. Whereas, you read about King David having a beard at a time when he was pretending to be mad. But again, like I said, right, there is no yes and there is no no. It's one of those areas which was only applied at a particular time to our nation, and it was never necessary. There is no commandment that says thou shalt. So we have to, we go with thou shalt. We don't just go with ambiguous commands. These commands are related to worship. And this is not related to general living. It's not like you're going to the office and you got to grow a 6-foot beard. It's not like that. This is related to worship in the temple times or the tabernacle times, when we were commanded to come and be in a particular format. So I hope everybody understands that. Now, coming back to the law of manifestation, and I haven't seen people post their suggestion. So if you want to post it, okay, Eddie, for you, I think we had a private discussion on that, and for you, Eddie, for you to see the result, you need to basically be in a career that you're happy with, investment and traveling. So in your case, you need to see the end result, and for you, the end result will be that that you are in an environment which makes you happy, investment environment, and you're handling clients, and it's your private personal business, and you're traveling. That's what you would see. So you would see yourself. The best way to, how do you mimic it? How do you do it? So the way you do it is, you'd probably be sitting in your office with a friend, and the friend is congratulating you, and you're receiving the congratulations back, and he's saying to you, Eddie, congratulations, you made a great investment, guru of yourself, and you got a lot of clients, and I'm happy to see that. And you're saying, yes, I'm glad that I've took this opportunity to become the investment guru that I am, and I'm really happy, and my life is great, and I travel all over the world. So this is the kind of back and forth conversation. This conversation should be happening in your imagination, and this should be happening in an affirmation, and this should be happening in your inner self-talk. That's what will get you there, because that's the end result. The end result, you cannot, there is no way for you to know how it feels, because you're not there yet, and you wouldn't know how it feels to be a millionaire or a billionaire until you get there, right? So the best way to make that feeling come to you is through a conversation, where you're having a conversation with a close friend, and you're receiving the congratulations, and you're responding back. That back and forth will be will lead to your success. So any other questions on that? And Olivia did the apartment. Olivia is talking about doing the currency, digital business, currencies, etc. Maybe is talking about. I'm not sure if you're talking about digital currency as bitcoins or cryptocurrency, or maybe you're talking in general. But really, Olivia, all you do is you apply the same technique that you did. But before all of you apply the technique, very important is that you apply the meditation. You apply the meditation, and you then do the visualization. So, Olivia, for you in general, I would suggest that you see yourself in a conversation. Don't just look to 10,000, look to 1 million, and say you are in a conversation. Maybe it's your wife that's in conversation with you. Maybe it's your brother. Maybe it's your friend. And they are congratulating you. Say, Olivia, congratulations, you made $1 million on your business. How did you do it? And then you basically just receive the congratulations and say, thank you very much. I'm glad I took the opportunity and I became a millionaire. And that's where you need to focus on, Olivia, in your imagination. and it could be your spouse congratulating you and giving you a hug and giving you a kiss, and you receiving that, that would be great. They'll sort that out. Your hundi, you ask, can we also talk and visualize at the same time? Absolutely. You know, your hundi, you need to write an affirmation for what you want, whatever business is model, whatever business you desire, you need to write it down. And then what you do the self-talk back and forth, and you do the visualization of the same. So, lecture class is a 7th edition, 7th Hay. It's called the Abrahamic-Faith, 7th Hay edition. Look for the date. It should be 13th February or onwards. It should not be less than 13th February 2020. If it says 13th February 2020, that's the one you want to pull up. And, you know, check it on Amazon. Now, so, your hundi coming back to you, you know, when you visualize, when you self-talk, your self-talk needs to be in such a way. Like, if you're having a business, and you're having a friend congratulate you, and it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like, you know, it needs to be 5, 6, 7, 8 times. You know, you need to do it a number of times. You loop it. So, conversation could be, you know, maybe you have a business with 3 cars. You know, I don't know, maybe you have a taxi Uber business with 3 cars rolling. And your friend says to you, hey, you know, let's say your name is Cameroon for argument's sake. He says, hey, Cameroon, you know, you got 3 cars rolling in Uber. Isn't that great? You made good for yourself. And you have this back and forth conversation. And you say to your friend, yeah, you know, I've got 3 cars rolling in Uber and I'm doing great. And so again, it's the same repetition of the same. So you do that 5, 6 times self-talk, and you visualize it. And in visualization, your friend is telling you, Yahundi, you made great with having 3 Uber cars. Or you made great with your business. You got 3 cars rolling. You know, you got 3 cars that you rented out. And you say, yeah, I've got 3 cars rented out and I feel great, making great money. So that way, you know, you're doing self-talk, and you're doing visual. And it doesn't need to be 3 cars. It could be 3 cars. It could be 30 cars. It could be 10 cars. That's your choice. You decide where you want to be. But, you know, you can always start, you know, if you feel that you want to start with 3 and then build up to 30, then you do that. I know people in England who have 30 taxis, you know. I know people like that. And they started with 1. Or maybe they started with none first, and then they got 1, and then by the time they finish, now they have 30 cars on the road, and they're making, you know, they're making silly money every month. You know, money that 10,000, 15,000 pounds a month, 20,000 pounds a month, silly money, you know. They're making a lot of money over there with that kind of cars on rent. So you can do that. Anybody else you need to know, and I can help you with that before we shut down the class. Any other takers? Anybody else who's struggling or maybe needs to know, you know, how to put things into practice? Oh yes, UK is pretty strict on the drunken driving side of things, because, you know, and I think it's a good thing too, because you shouldn't be drinking and driving, because you know, you can accidentally kill somebody or maim somebody. That's not good. Okay, so I take it no other questions, and if you're feeling shy to ask questions publicly, by all means write me an email, and we can pick it up you know, offline. That's no problem. Whatever issues you're having, whatever problems you're having, whatever desire that you want, and you're not sure how quite to pen it, how quite to write the affirmation, or maybe you're not sure how to visualize it, by all means, you know, write to me an email to my address, shimon63@yahoo.com. That's SHIMOUN@60@yahoo.com. And I'll be able to guide you exactly how to do it. I'll be able to pen the affirmation for you, and then you should be well on your way to success and happiness. You know, that's Torah is about success, happiness, and living. Torah is not about death and crying and unhappy. Torah is success, happiness, and good living. So that's what we're here for, until we are restored back to the, you know, to our native country. Baruch Shem Yahweh. Have a great Shabbat over here in North America, and have a great new week over there across the pond. Adelia, you know, on your side, I would say to you a couple of things. Remember, we spoke about your husband to be, and I said that you see yourself hugging your husband at the airport, you know, where you live, and then, you know, welcoming him into America. And also the money side, you need to see a prop. Make a prop of your statement. Take your statement. If you're not sure how to do the graphic, get somebody else to, or you can just print it out, Adelia. Print out your bank statement, Tipex it with something, and then write a figure you like on it. Write a six-figure sum on it. And then continue to see that six-figure sum. Visualize it. You're seeing a six-figure sum on your statement, not a two-figure sum or a three-figure sum. And then also on top of that, what you need to do is have an affirmation that speaks for it, like a six-figure sum. I am a millionaire. Speak that. I am a millionaire. And you don't need to worry how it's going to come, because it's got many ways to come to you. But you need to see it. You need to experience it by, taking a standard, box standard online statement, print it out, and then just write the figure you like on it. And then you can just look at it every day, and your affirmation will be that I have $1 million in my bank account. That's an affirmation. I have $1 million in my bank account. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it is an affirmation that will work. And you don't need to worry about the mechanics of how it works. But remember, we can alter the facts. We have the power to alter the facts. And that's what you're going to be doing. Okay, so with that, I'm going to be closing the room. Like I said, if you're not sure, if you're shy to ask me here, no problem, write to me, and I will be, more than happy to help you achieve your desires and results in your life. So, there's already a book that I have out there called the Law of Attraction versus a Perfect Law. I already have that book out there, but then I will be looking at writing another book called Bullseye, the Law of Manifestation, to achieve all your desires. That's going to be in the pipeline. I don't know how long it takes to finish it, but it is definitely in the pipeline, where I will lay down the methods that I have learned over the years, that how to systematically apply the method using the perfect law to achieve your objectives. And so that's going to be in the pipeline. Okay, so with that, I'm going to shut down the room. Have a great week. Until next Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, and Shalom Shalom to you.